Welcome to the Crimeycade podcast. I am the mad conservative crime fighter, Stephen Lucas, former the 1991 Nintendo Campus Challenge National Champion, the former 2021 Gamer of the Year, current Pinball Expo, Galvin Ghost Pinball Expo champion, for episode 17 of the Crimeycade podcast. And we got... it's been a ride. It's like, so a question I've gotten often is, Crimey, how are you getting your guests? How are you getting this guy? How are you getting this guy? It's, the only thing I'm doing is just messaging the people I know and asking if they would join me for the podcast. And it's as simple as that. I mean, if it was some random stranger that was asking somebody to get on their podcast, they might not do it. But everybody that I've had on my podcast, I've known in some form or fashion over the past number of years. So it starts with that and it goes on from there. And I'll be interviewing all the people, all the gamers I know, one by one, as I just build up to kind of more prominent people in the gaming scene. Eventually, yes, I want to get higher people on the totem pole on this podcast at some point or the future. But it's going to take some time to build it up till I get to a level where it is worth their while to come on this program. But in the meantime, my guest today, and I expect to have this little turkey interfere in my podcast yet again. Yes, I've got the doggone Cody emotes. The Cody emotes, because this little turkey is going to crash the podcast probably multiple times because he wants, I don't know, he wants to be a part of the show, or he just wants attention, or who knows what. But this little guy, this feisty little ginger here, starving for attention all the time. Say hello, Cody. All right, you're just looking straight at me. It's like, what are you doing? All right, it's time for you to go. You behave and don't bite. Oh, if you're not gonna behave, I'll get you. Yeah, I expect that to happen a lot, but until he settles down and takes a nap, I guess. Anyway, my guest for tonight, from the state of Texas, he is, let's put this up here. He is one of the co-founders, I believe one of the organizers, co-founder or organizer of the ATG Expo down in Texas. The next one will be June 14th, 15th in 2025. The last one was held in January. He's got quite the collection of video games, and we'll be talking about that as we go along. But when I brought up his name, I had somebody ask me yesterday on the Bloodcast, who is this guy? Who is this guy? Well, it's another gamer I know from another state, and yes, he's come around the Midwest. He's made multiple trips and up to the Midwest to the local gaming conventions and even Galvin Ghost. So my guest for tonight, the former co-founder of the Let's Play Gaming Expo, and he's also a producer of music at 54&0 Productions, and also has the world's largest collection of Dragon Warrior cartridges. He is Christian Deitering.
Hello.
How you doing tonight? Thank you for joining me.
I'm excited.
It's quite. I just winged this introduction. I didn't have it written out or nothing.
That's pretty good. You got somehow you found the CD. It's the soundtrack for Mother to Earth, which is the documentary I produced about Earthbound.
That music is whatever the heck was playing in the 5 minutes in the countdown is a StreamYard track. I don't own a CD of this music. It's just one of the tracks offered. But that's kind of interesting to know, though. And you are frozen. Oh, there you go.
No. I'm moving. It just felt like I was frozen. Where do you want to start? What do you want to talk about first?
Well, let's start. Let's start from the beginning. Well, you had how I got to meet you was through the Let's Play Gaming Expo.
What year did you come down? 2018?
So it was, I thought it was 2019, but it turned out it was 2018.
That's what I thought.
I had just come off a panel. It's like all the Nintendo champions had a gathering at the Midwest Gaming Classic, probably earlier that year or the previous year. Don't remember. Not quite sure. Yeah, the timeline's a little fuzzy, but years have just gone by, I guess. Right.
Dan put something together, and you were a part of it, is what you're saying? That's how that all came together?
I don't know if it was Dan Ackervelli, but no, it was Matt Hendricks. He was one of the Wii Sports there was a Nintendo had a tournament on Wii Sports, and he was one of the winners. Yeah. I see that.
Yeah, they gave out a
you
belt.
Got belts. Where'd you get that one?
eBay.
eBay? Well, daggum, now I need to... Well, all the belts I have are ones that I've won.
Yeah.
Yes. But we'll get to that in a bit. So I came off this panel. Some of the Nintendo champions or runners-up had a panel. Of course, I'm the 91 Nintendo Campus Challenge National Champion. The one thing that I hadn't had gotten a chance to do was meet my predecessor. And I've kind of always thought I was in his shadow because my tournament win didn't get as much attention as his did over the years. And that would be the 1990 Nintendo World Champion, Thor Ackerlund, which turns out
Thor was
to be one of three.
Thor went up to Midwest.
Went up to Midwest?
Yeah, when you did this panel that you're talking about. Are you talking about when you were doing it at my place? My bad. I was just trying to make sure I understood.
Okay. As far as I know, Thor Ackerlund has not come up to Illinois.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I was saying. It was like, wait, Thor went somewhere? He doesn't travel very often. Okay, so you're talking about when the panel we were doing at Let's Play in 2018.
Yes, the panel I wanted to do at Let's Play. I've never met Thor. I wanted to meet. Man.
I invite him to most of the shows. I have his phone number. I'll just randomly text him. He never responds, but I always tell him I'll put him down for free tickets to the shows. Unadvertised. Like, nobody needs to know you're going to be there. I'll just give you free tickets. You can come hang out. He did. The one time he showed up was when we had Robin come down. And I think that was 2019 when we did the Wizard tournament.
Yeah.
He came out for the concert on Saturday night. And I was like, oh, shoot, there he is.
Yeah, and he did a panel with Patrick Scott Patterson.
Oh, yeah. PSP.
That was the original plan, was to do a panel with Thor and PSP, because I already knew Patrick Scott. Well, he prefers to be called Scott.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he does.
He's come up to he was previously a Twin Galaxies ref, and he's come up. Yeah, he came up to the Midwest for one of the pinball. No, it was Big Bang. I did an interview. I interviewed him for my old TV show. Gosh, it was Pro Wrestling Central this week. Yeah, I did a 10-minute segment with him because he was a former wrestler himself.
Yeah, he's into that stuff. That's one of his things that he has in the past.
Yeah, so he's like the world's toughest gamer. Yeah, so I'd never been to Texas. I thought, find the conventions down there. See if let's have a panel with Thor, and have the first ever meeting between the 90 and the 91 Nintendo champions. That still hasn't happened yet.
It's funny.
So I had planned, since there's always the chance of something going wrong, and I'm going to a completely new area of the country that I've never been to. Yeah, and I got to tell you about the try getting out of Dallas, Texas, because that was an adventure. I had to come up with several plan Bs ahead of time, and I ended up using all of them. There's a couple of gamers, and I don't remember the names, but I would have them on remote, kind of. I guess it's a Zoom meeting of some sort.
There were two guys, that were coming in live from different parts of the country.
Yes.
The one I remember was the Wii Sports guy, but I couldn't remember who. Oh, the other guy was the NWC 2015, wasn't it? Is that who it was?
I don't think they had a championship to their names. They were like somewhere in the top 5.
I don't remember. They were cool guys. That was a fun panel.
Yes.
Because PSP couldn't make it. I think that was why I ended up coming up and helping moderate. Because it was me, you, and then the two guys who were coming in remotely.
Yes. And being a technical person, I also set up the video and audio, and discovering that audio gets routed through the HDMI cable and not through the audio jack for some bizarre reason. And I had to put a microphone right up against the speaker of the laptop, which is not ideal either. But you know what? Got through it.
It sounds like Let's Play. We did it.
Yes. But enough about me. Oh, yes. And then the rest of the weekend, I went to this. I went to 2 of these.
Yeah. Which one? Richardson and Arlington?
Yeah.
Yeah. Richardson was the first one, and Arlington is one of the, I think, larger ones. That's a nice venue. I like that one.
So I played at both locations. The Monday morning before National Video Game Museum.
Mm-hmm.
And lo and behold, Dan Kitchen happens to be there. And he had a copy of he had a prototype cartridge of Keystone Capers #2, which I guess it was kind of like a bonus for me because a prototype you're seeing it for the first time before everybody else. And it's one of those prototypes that have been lost for time, but were always rumored to be out there somewhere. And he showed up at the museum with the cartridge and walked over to an Atari 2600, plugged it in, and basically watched him demo it.
That's awesome.
Then, basically, after that, after touring the whole museum, then it was the quest to get out of Dallas. And the rental vehicle I had did not have GPS. The only thing I could use was the GPS on this, which apparently wasn't too great because it wasn't shouting any directions. I had to basically take peeks at the screen. I did not want to take the toll roads, and there's toll roads at the
man.
wazoo.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know how you did it by not taking toll roads. That's all Dallas is.
Well, there's roads that run along the toll roads that are running like
yeah, but you're hitting
45.
lights every 5 minutes. That's funny.
I kind of estimate how long it would take to drive down them. So I get into the downtown Dallas. It's trying to get back to the train station and figure out which turn it is and stuff, and then train's coming and I miss a turn and then having to drive a distance and then only to double back, and I was freaking out. I get to the train station, drop the vehicle off in a bit of a dead run to the train platform. I get to the train platform just as the train's pulling in. Now, the train was going to sit for about 20 minutes because that's how the schedule was. It would pull in for 20 minutes, and so everybody, yeah, so I was huffing and puffing, got on the train. It was like people were looking at me. I was like, are you all right? Blah, blah, blah. It's like, and I tell them, I was exhausted. I was in a dead run. Tell them I was missing turns, and I was freaking out that I was going to miss the train. And I just, yeah, out of breath. Yeah. And
well, you made it because here we are talking about it.
Well, I didn't get stranded. That's the main thing. I didn't have to spend extra nights over there. But okay, enough about me, and welcome our viewers. Dan Ecavelli is here, the hype man JP Pitts, who was the guy who was wondering who the heck you were yesterday. So I had to educate him.
From the intro, I found out that apparently I'm at the bottom of the totem pole. I'm propping you up.
Bottom of the totem pole?
Yeah, you said you were hoping that you could get people higher up on the totem pole later on. Which means I must be bottom of the totem pole. I'm all you can get at the moment.
The highest people on the totem pole is going to be somebody like a Doc Mack or a Walter Day or a Billy Mitchell. Those are going to be the hardest ones to get.
All very achievable.
Well,
you're in that community, man.
Billy can't right now because he's in a legal battle with Carl Jost. And that's coming up in September. So he can't do any podcasts right now. He's got that court case is going to happen in Australia this almost at the end of summer. It's going to be the brawl to sell it all, I guess. Yeah, it's going to be pretty wild.
Man, I saw him at Midwest Gaming Classic after all the accusations and stuff first started. He still had a line. He still brings the people in.
Yes.
He's still fun to talk to. You know, and he embraced the villain part. He had he made a T-shirt and it was his
I got maimed.
His tie, and it had the little button that said I got maimed.
Yes.
Hilarious. I bought one.
Yeah, and he showed up at the Illinois Game Con a couple of years ago. I still had the title belt, the Gamer of the Year belt, and he just showed up unannounced. And apparently I blocked him in the shot, so he had to get up on a paint can to stand over everybody. People were pointing that out. I was like having laughs about it.
That's funny. Did you know that you were blocking him?
No, I had no idea.
Yeah, better. It's unintentional.
It didn't. I would have. I mean, if they told me to stand in a particular spot, I would have. But I just we're just all lining up on the stage, and he was like looking at the camera, posing, ready for the shot. Had the belt on my shoulder, and we had the shot. And then afterward, he called me to the back. He did an interview with me, which hasn't aired. I've asked him if what happened to it, and it hasn't shown up. So I don't know what happened to it. Maybe in. Of course, I've got footage too that
I
I've
gotta
not.
say, yeah, man, everybody's sitting on footage.
I've got footage out the wazoo,
Yep.
and I've been doing the wrestling thing for so many years. Todd Pepin has joined us. Welcome in. How you doing?
What up,
Enough
Todd?
about me because you're the guest. I'm the host. Tell me about you. Um, so the Let's Play Gaming Expo ran for 5 years.
Up to quarantine, yeah. You know, if quarantine hadn't happened, probably still be going. But that threw a big wrench in everybody's lives.
Yeah, and like there was concern. It did blow up some. It blew up multiple conventions. It ended the tenure of multiple arcades. Of course, now more arcades are opening. I keep finding new ones.
Yeah, they're coming back for sure.
Yes. So let's play. So let's play ended. Was there an attempt to bring it back, or did you just?
No, we looked into it. We were kind of silent on social media and stuff, but it was only because we were
Stand by. There we go.
We were really hoping to come back, and so 2020, nothing was happening. 2021, I think we started looking at venues again, and prices went up, man. It was venues that we had looked at. That was the thing, is that I knew prices went up because we looked at all these venues, so I knew how much they cost pre-COVID, and then quarantine, and then we go back out, and all of a sudden the price is 3 times what it was before quarantine. It was just like, get out. I couldn't believe it, and what they were telling us was, we're completely sold out. There's so much demand for us right now, and that's why we're charging these high prices. But that's not what was going on. Anybody who had signed their contract before COVID, there's a clause for all these venues that all these conventions and gaming festivals that we all have to sign. There's a clause in all these contracts that says you have to make a reasonable effort to reschedule your show if something unforeseeable happens. And so anybody who had signed a contract pre-COVID, when quarantine happens and they shut down for like a good year and a half, all those shows first have to try and schedule a new date. And so when they're telling me they're sold out, it's like, you're not sold out. You rescheduled everything that you needed to like cover. But they don't say that. They're like, we're in such high demand, and it's like, get out of here with that. So it just became unaffordable. It was a real bummer. Even going back to my hometown, which was where we started, Plano, it was cheap in the beginning, and when we came back, our contact had left. The lady that we knew at the conventions bureau had left, and it was like we were starting over. They were like, who are you? We don't know who you are. We care nothing for you. Whereas those people loved us like before. They loved what we were up to. They were sponsoring the event. They were giving us money for the esports because we were doing the tournaments and whatnot. And all of a sudden I show back up, and all they cared about was, how many hotel rooms are you going to book? Like, that was it. And then they gave me this like tiered breakdown of what they were going to charge me based on how many rooms I was going to book. And they're just sucking the fun out of it. I don't do this to make money. I do this to have a good time. And so all of a sudden having to deal with all this bullshit. I don't know if I'm allowed to cuss, but that's what it was.
Well, people have cussed on the past, so
I'm just gonna say that, man. It was a lot of BS. That just like, I can't believe, like, I don't understand. I live here. Like, we've done this here before. They were acting like I just showed up and it was the first time I'd ever been there. It was just, it was frustrating to the point that, one, we couldn't afford it, and two, the more hurdles that were being put in front of us, like, the less and less it was like, guys, I don't know if this is going to be able to happen, man. And so that was kind of where it ended. Was we could not find a venue. We could not find a venue in DFW, and so it wasn't for lack of trying. We did go out, we did tour, we were trying to figure out. We even talked about reinvesting more money to pay the higher cost of the new venues, and it just wasn't cost feasible because Let's Play Gaming Expo was always family friendly, and we prided ourselves on how affordable it was. And so the prices the venues were giving us, we would have had to have raised ticket prices. And again, it's like, well, that's not the show that we like wanted to throw. We're not trying to price people out. We liked the fact that an entire family could afford to come on a weekend. It was a bummer, but quarantine, COVID.
Yeah,
I'm it really sucked at the time, but like looking back on it, I'm not hard on myself because I don't feel like it was our fault. We didn't do anything. Like,
right. And did you ever think about scaling it back? Maybe
I
to a
did.
smaller venue?
I did. Well, Plano, coming back to Plano would have been us scaling it back, and even that became like I said, unfeasible. It was just all of a sudden the price had doubled for them because it was a really affordable venue when we started, and that was how this all came about. And then, man, they were playing hardball with me, and I think they had given over to like a management company. There's a lot of venues that have done that were run by cities, and they've handed over the rights to run the event center to these like third party management companies. And the first thing that they do is they get rid of the price. So Plano Convention Center, the price, I think it's back up. I don't know that it's like this anymore. Somebody told me, they were like, "Oh no, the price is back up." And it was like, well, I can tell you for sure in 2021 it was not. When those management companies take over, they take the price off the website, and everything is a negotiation. And so it's just to see how much they can bleed out of you.
I guess Dan Lucent's pretty fortunate that he was able to, I guess, get the Wisconsin Center back because he ended up doing two conventions within 6 months apart.
That's why that first one that was in October, that he had already signed his contract. I'm friends with Dan, so we trust me. Oh man, talking to him, he if the governor had signed like a piece of paper that said, quarantine was an act of God, basically, Dan would have gotten out of his contract, but the governor never did, and I think that they ended up letting him push, but they were really trying to make him throw his show in 2020. I mean, it was like up to the last minute where they still were like, "No, you're on the hook. We want you to finish paying your deposit." Like nothing's
Yeah.
happening at that. This would have been, I think May 2020, August 2020. I can't remember, but
Well,
like
the convention
March,
was April.
Like March is when everything starts to kind of get shut down, and it felt like he had another month or so where
Yeah.
he's just like waiting to find out what was going to happen. But I think that they ended up pushing it, and that was the October show. I think he'd
Yeah.
have to correct me, but I think that was what happened. Was the October show was him fulfilling the obligation for the contract he signed back in like 2019, and then the next show was like the regular show. That was the normal time that everybody was used to. I ended up going to both those shows. I had a good time. You could tell that I think the second one, the attendance felt a little lighter, but everybody said it was like, well, yeah, because he just did this show 6 months ago. And so there's a lot of people who were at other shows right then, because they'd just been there.
And I went to both, and both conventions had significant differences between them, so they
Mm-hmm.
were unique and fresh.
Yeah, totally.
And currently, the streak of conventions attended stands at 20 in a row.
For what? Midwest?
Yes, I've gone to 20
Wow.
Midwest gaming conventions in a row,
That's insane, man.
starting from 2004 onward.
When did it start? I don't even know.
Uh, Supposedly 2002, but it was kind of more like Jagfest. I'm not entirely sure but the first one I attended was at the Brookfield Sheridan. And then after that, they went to Oconomowoc, Wisconsin, at I think a resort. It did have a ski hill there.
I
It
didn't
was
get to
there
go to
for a
those.
few years. Had this great downtown area right on the edge of the lake. It was like majestic. And then they went back to Brookfield Sheridan. It got so daggum crammed in there that they had to put the vendor hall in a circus tent
So that was when I
outside.
showed up. I showed up
Yeah,
when they had the vendor hall outside. I think 2015, 2014. I did go back and look, but it's somewhere in there.
thereabouts. And yeah, in the dead of winter too.
Mm-hmm.
Sandy. Um, and then they found the Wisconsin Center, and that's where they've been running ever since.
That
And
hotel was insane. I'm so glad that I got to go to the hotel one of those like giant nuts years, because you try to describe it to people and they don't understand. It's like, what? I'm like, they moved everything out of the hotel rooms and then it was up to you to decide how you were going to do your room.
yeah, and they had the big old. Well, Wisconsin Center's adjoined to a hotel,
Yeah.
so
What's cool is seeing the groups that are still at Midwest Gaming Classic that I remember meeting that first time I went, like Guys Games and Beer.
yeah,
Like,
they're there every year.
yeah, they were the back two rooms down the hallway at the back of the hotel. I remember they had a couch in one room where they were all sitting and playing like a game that was on a projector. And then I think they were like streaming or something, podcasting. I don't remember, but they were doing something else in the other room. But they had those two back ones. That's what I remember.
Yeah,
Everybody's bathtub was full of beverages. Capital B, capital E, capital E, capital R, and
yeah,
beverages. It was so much
yeah,
fun. And it's still a good show, but like
yes.
that's a unique independent show. Like that's a small thing. Like
A show
nobody
within a
does that stuff
show.
anymore. Yeah. Man, that was a good time. I'm glad I got to see that.
Well, now they've expanded that into the Hackers Convention, which comes before the Midwest Gaming Classic.
Yeah,
And
CypherCon.
yeah, and I'm kind of sort of tempted to attend. I haven't gone to CyberCon in the past. I just show up on Friday for the Midwest Gaming because I'm not a programming is out of my wheelhouse. It's been that way for decades. I don't know how they learned to code, but I at a certain point I just could not figure out object-oriented programming. When I went through college, it was BASIC, Pascal, COBOL, C, and now it's
C++
object-oriented.
is what I learned in high school. I learned very little C++ in high school.
Yeah, the colleges were always behind what employers were demanding, and it's like is a no-win battle because the employers wanted all these years of work experience before they'll hire anybody, which is why we have this problem of all this cheap labor coming out of India on contract and pushing all these people coming out of college with these IT careers and IT degrees, and we can't get hired because I guess we cost too much money.
Meanwhile, I'm all about Fiverr.
Yes. We have a question. Are these shows conventions mostly a Midwest thing? They're all over the country. I mean,
Yeah, there's stuff in the Northeast.
we'll have to find you one. We'll have to
A
find you.
a video game con, I feel like, is in New Jersey.
Yeah. And
There's another one up there too. I want to say Long Island Retro Expo or something like that. I've heard good things. That sounds like I'm close to the name of it. I think that might be right, but I've heard really good things about that show.
apparently he did Fortran and assembly. That's what. I've never did Fortran. Assembly is kind of tricky to deal with. I'm not sure how to do it. The hype man JP has cheered me 1,000 bits. Thank you very much. Thank you for the bits. So now, after the Let's Play Expo was retired after 5 years, tell us about the ATG Expo.
There was a guy that used to run tournaments for us at Let's Play, and he was always poking me to do a show with him, and I always said I can only do one show. It takes a lot of effort and a lot of time and a lot of energy to do a show well.
Mm-hmm.
Is how I always like to put it. I could probably do more than one show, but I just don't know that they would, be as nice as the one show a year.
Mm-hmm.
So when Let's Play ended, uh, they were bugging me again, and we're like, "Hey, let's do this." And this was this was like around the same time that we were talking about Let's Play. So I ended up when I looking at venues with them for ATG, but it wasn't just Dallas. We actually went down to Austin and we drove up and we stopped in Waco. And I asked him, why are we stopping in Waco? And he said, we're going to check out these two event centers. And we went to, and they were both nice. The Extraco Center was the other one in Waco that we went and checked out. Central Texas Comic Con has their show there. It's a nice show. It's a nice venue. But we went to the Waco Convention Center, which is in downtown. And I told him, I was like, man, I think I'm about to do a show again. I really did want to. After Let's Play, I was like, I'm out. But we got there and I saw the venue and the price and the location. Who is it? Chip and Joanne? Chip and Joanne turned Waco around, man. Because I grew up in Texas, so I remember what Waco used to be. My wife went to school there at Baylor for a minute, and they used to tell them don't leave campus. Like it was not a pleasant town. And Chip and Joanne just flipped Waco. Waco's super nice now. And so that was the first thing I noticed when we stopped at the Waco Convention Center. I'm looking around, downtown's nice. There's a bunch of really nice restaurants, like a whole bunch of like little boutique places. And I'm just like, that place used to be a ghost town. Like
now, is that because of? I seem to remember. Is that because of the Branch Davidians as why Waco got such a bad rep?
Yes.
Rap.
Oh, I'm sure that has something to do with it. But I'm just saying.
That's from the early 90s, I believe.
I used to just drive through Waco, and then so that was my attitude. I came in it with thinking that why we're wasting our time. And then I saw it and I was just like, oh man, I think we're doing this. And then we went up to Dallas, and that was the beginning, because I think we actually went and looked at venues first. And then Let's Play started talking about like, let's try and do this. And I said, man, I've already looked into it. I'm not having any luck. And I gave them a couple spots where it was like, these were the best that we saw, like in terms of affordability and the size for the kind of shows that we're trying to do. And then we looked even further. So like once I saw Waco, I was like, ATG, okay, sweet. But then Let's Play was happening, and the team that was left, that was the other part too, is that quarantine broke up the team. Some of the people didn't live here anymore. Like one of our guys, Kalen, moved out to California, so he wasn't even around anymore. Yeah, you remember Kalen? Kalen was usually doing
panels and stuff. I'm just kind of surprised anybody would have been going to California from Texas, since California was so heavily restricted. And
he went out. He was a game tester. I think he went out there for like a QA job or something.
Okay.
But anyways, yeah, we looked. So then that was, ATG found its home, but then Let's Play started looking, and I told him, here's what I found when I was out with my buddy, my new partner, I guess. And yeah, so Let's Play expanded the search in Dallas. And like I said, there was just nothing. And the ones that we did find, they wouldn't cut a deal. They were super expensive. And just, yeah, like I said, we couldn't figure out a way. And so,
I have to wonder how the wrestling promotions in that city are still running. If
They're
they were,
not. They're not. Akon just called it quits. Akon was the longest running anime show, I think, in the country.
mm-hmm.
And they announced like 2 months ago they weren't going to do a show this year. And everybody's saying the writing's on the wall. It's like it may not be. It may be that they don't do a show again ever. And so it's like no. Even the big shows. I mean, that's a 30-year plus show that I think COVID killed.
What shows are actually running in Dallas? If they raise the prices so daggum high for everybody.
Well, that's what's crazy is that because Akon wasn't happening, there's another show that was like the little brother show, right? It's like the smaller show, but because
Yeah.
Akon didn't happen, everybody went to WeebCon, and
Okay.
I don't think they were ready for it. You know what I'm saying? So it was like their attendance was insane this year because they were the only anime convention in town. Everybody that normally would have gone to Akon ended up going to the other event, and they just got slammed. I heard they were slammed all weekend. So now the old show died, and this like newer show kind of reaped the benefits a little bit, was what I heard.
Okay. So they raised the prices. I guess they replaced everything, or did they just change the clientele they rented to? That's kind of what I was getting towards.
Well, some
Was
other
that
show, like I said, we were an affordable show. That was always our goal. So some of these shows were already charging like 60, 80, $100 per ticket. We were always around 40. I don't think we ever got above 50.
okay? All right.
The
Well,
competition was Super Bitcon up in Oklahoma City. They had
mhm.
$5 tickets. I think they were for 3 years, and they had $5. I think it was $5 tickets. It was like $5 or $10 tickets, and it was so frustrating. But they did their show at the Oklahoma State Fairgrounds, where they do like this, yeah, the state fair and stuff for Oklahoma. And it was basically, in a stall where maybe another time of the year they would have had animals or something in there. But
Okay.
it was a cheap venue, super cheap, and because of that, I mean, that was the ultimate show. The fact that they were charging people so little was just like, I wish that I could do that. It was great. And then their attendance was up, so they had a ton of people come out because the tickets were so cheap.
So this is it. 2025. And apparently, I looked through this. You've already got. Are these last year's guests, or this is?
Those are last year's guests. I'll have to send a text to my partner and say, take down the guests from last year.
I recognize some of these names. This guy here, Daniel Pacina. Well, both Pacinas, Paul
Man,
Niemeyer.
so nice. Those all three of those guys from the Mortal Kombat group, super super chill. Uh, and yay, we can do a shout out to one of your previous guests. So I had Paul was already coming out. He was a guest at the show called SEG, which is Southeast Game Exchange. It takes place in South Carolina, and I'm friends with Austin, the showrunner for that. And he mentioned Paul was a really chill guest and that he was a super cool guy and just really nice and easy to work with. And he was right. I mean, I asked him to the show and he immediately was like, I'm in. And he sent me like all of his like headshots and stuff. It was
Yeah.
just funny, like how quick he was like, oh, you're friends with Austin? I'll come to your show. And so then I mentioned the Fat Chris that Paul was going to be there. I was like, hey man, I was trying to get Fat Chris to come out to the show. So I told him we had Paul coming out, and he was like, oh, you want some of the actors? And I was like, what do you mean? He was like, yeah, I got them on my phone. Let me contact the Pacina real quick. And so that was how the Pacinas ended up there. Was Fat Chris just, I think, texted Daniel and was like, hey, my buddy's putting on the show, and they were like, we're in. And that was
And
it. It was just Fat Chris sent them a text, and they were like, oh, what's up, Fat Chris? Yeah, we'll do the show. That was it.
wow. Yeah, and that's where I met Chris Bulcher for the first time, is at your convention.
Oh, he's working arcade.
Yeah, he was there, and it's like his name would come up on the Galloping Ghost stream, but I had not met him yet. And it's like I came across him. He was wearing the orange vest, and there was a ghost patch on it. And I was like, Oh, I recognize the patch. I introduced myself. It's basically recognized that he's been to the Galloping Ghost where I've been a regular. So
what's interesting, this is funny because this is like a weird full circle for everything that we just talked about.
yeah.
I met Doc when I went to the Midwest Gaming Classic that first year at the hotel. That was the year that he brought the Primal Rage 2 cab and the guy spilled beer on the board
Yeah.
down in the basement. And I used to run around with my camera. I would go to these events, and if you go to my Vimeo channel, they're all still there, just my old Nintendo age videos. I would go around to these cons and I'd make videos. I'd talk to people, and I knew nobody, and so that always kind of works in my favor. I just like I basically I talk to people and they end up being important, and I don't know it at the time. And so I went downstairs with my camera and I was like, "Hey, I'm looking for the guy who owns the Primal Rage 2 cab." And they're like, "That's him over there." And so I go over, I'm like, "Hey, can I interview you?" And he was like, "Yeah, sure, I'll do an interview." And do you know who that was? It was Doc Mack. That was how I met Doc for the first time, was just going down there and being like, "I heard some beer got spilled on this like prototype cab. Will you talk with me about it?" I had no clue who he was. I heard that was the story everybody was talking about. And I was like, "Oh, let me go get that on camera real quick for fun." So that's how I meet Doc, and I find out about the Galloping Ghost during the interview. It's like you'll see in the interview, I'm learning about all that's like the first time I'm hearing everything from him. I had no clue who he was. So then I met Fat Chris at Too Many Games,
Right.
and he kept telling me to go to this thing called MagFest out in DC. Originally
Pepin. Remember that one.
originally the Mid-Atlantic Gaming Expo or Gaming Festival, and then now it's Music and Game Festival, MagFest. So he kept bothering me about that. It took 2 years, I think 2000. So I think 2013 was when I met him. 2015, I finally go to MagFest. Greatest show out there. I mean, oh my gosh, man, that thing is so insane. It's 4 days, 24 hours a day. And I'm sure if you're hearing about it for the first time, you're like me. I don't understand. How's it 24 hours a day? Fat Chris was like, "Well, you party and you play video games till about 6 in the morning, and then you go to sleep, and then you wake back up at 9 and you do it all again." And I was just like, "Get out of here." And then I went, and that was exactly what happened
I
every
could
single day.
probably do
I couldn't
it
believe it.
1 or 2 days, but not ever like several days in a row. No way.
Every
I'd be
day,
a
but
freaking zombie.
no, I did it because that was the first time I discovered 8-player Mario Kart Double Dash on the GameCube,
Oh,
and I
okay.
love Double Dash. And all of a sudden, it was like, "What? Wait, hold on. What do you mean 8-player?" Like they're having to explain it to me, and I was just like, my mind was blown. And so what I would end up doing every night is just hanging out playing Mario Kart from about midnight till 5 or 6. Basically, it was whenever we lost when we lost the 8th player, when we didn't have 8 players anymore. And it's to this day, it's always been like that when I go and play overnight. Is once we lose the 8th player, everybody just kind of looks at each other. You just get up and walk away. Like they go until we have 8 players, and then once you lose the 8th person, it's just like, all right, well, that's what we're calling it for the night. And that's usually between 4 6 a.m. Anyways, my bad. I had such a good time out there. I started volunteering for MagFest, and I was working the arcade crew because that was what Fat Chris was doing. So I was working for a buffet and having a good old fun time. And while we're doing all of that, I say to Fat Chris, "Yo, you like arcades? Have you been to the Ghost up in Chicago?" And he was like, "What's the Ghost? I don't know what that is." And I was like, "The Galloping Ghost. Like arcades are your thing. Like, how have you not heard about the Ghost?" And so that was how Fat Chris found out about the Galloping Ghost. Was I actually told him about it because I'd interviewed Doc Mack like 2 years earlier or something, and now he's a regular. He's a world score. I think he's got a couple of world scores or
Well,
my bad, world records. He got super into arcades now. He's got a whole bunch of arcades. Uh,
number 18.
he said he told me he doesn't think he'll ever get Gamer of the Year at the Ghost, but it's just because he doesn't live there. He's like, I don't go enough. I don't go enough to deserve Gamer of the Year.
Well, the current reigning Gamer of the Year, and that would be, actually, I should throw this back up there. Justin Vithel, also known as Zurst, lately he's only been able to go to the Galloping Ghost once or twice a year. pretty much for T20.
Mhm.
The year since he won Galloping Ghost Gamer of the Year and T20, I don't believe he's made an appearance at the Ghost since then. The next time he'll appear will be at the 2024 T20. But he's won 8 T20s so far out of 9. This is going to be the 10th annual T20 tournament. This August 9th and 11th through 11th.
Oh, so this is happening before the party.
Yes, this is anniversary week.
Is it? Okay. Does that always happen?
Okay,
is T20 always on that same weekend? Because I've been there a couple times. If it was, I didn't realize it was taking place.
Last year, anniversary day was on a Sunday, so it was on the last day of the T20 tournament. And then the year prior to that, it was like a week ahead. And it's like in 2019 or 2018, they moved, 2018 T20 was in October. Okay, the following year, they moved it to August to be a week before T20 anniversary.
Got it.
So this is the weekend before anniversary day.
That's cool because I'll be there. I'm flying up on Friday and I'm going to stay through Wednesday for the anniversary party.
So you got to enter T20?
No.
No?
I mean, maybe it's a joke. I'll be the bottom scorer.
All you have to do is play every game, put a score for every game to qualify. You can play for 1 day, you can play for 2 days, or all 3 days if you want. Or you can just play the side tournament.
They don't have to be good scores, is what you're telling me.
No.
Then I'll probably do it because I'll be there. I mean, we're going to be there every day, hanging out for like 5 days straight.
And the 20 games they put on in the tournament, or 25 games. I mean, last year they put out 20 new games. Brand new games that were not on the arcade floor. So nobody knew these games coming in.
Come on, R360.
They're not going to put R360. There's no way they put R360 in the T20 tournament. I have a heart. For one thing, they're not going to move it out of that room to go over to production.
We all have to go to the back of the Chinese restaurant in order to compete. Just one after another.
The scoring on G-Lock, it's basically how many kills you can get within the 2 minutes. And I believe Ken Walker has the mark has the high for that. I don't think they've entered it into arcade.
What was that? 43 is what I remember. Does that sound right?
And you froze.
I'm back now. 43 is what I heard. Does that sound correct?
Somewhere around there, yes.
Yeah, because I was lucky enough that Doc let me go back there, and I got to do it one time with Fat Chris. And Fat Chris was like, he killed it, and he got like 41. And I remember him saying like he was real close, and that like the high score was 43 or something like that. It's
Ken Walker.
Fat Chris killed it. I mean, you never would have imagined that dude going into that thing and just nailing it. But man, he was on fire. It was great. It was fun watching somebody do well because I think I shot like 11.
When I got on it, it was actually on auto mode, and grief, it hurt my neck.
It's an interesting machine. I feel privileged that I had an opportunity to check it out.
Well, I might write it again. Who knows? I gotta make sure that I have a near empty stomach and my neck is good.
Yeah, I did. I got sick. It was like riding a roller coaster for sure. I did it
upside down.
I did it once, and I was like, "That's it." I mean, I could only play that game one time.
Yes, I don't recommend going on multiple times in a row because, like, it jerks you in a way. It sends you in ways that you're not used to going, and that's the problem.
For those who may not
so
know what we're talking about, the R360 is what, the Sega game?
yes, it
Afterburner. You're playing Afterburner, but you're in an actual cockpit that you're like seat belted
well
into, and it rotates. It can go 360 degrees. So when you do your jet upside down in Afterburner, the entire thing rotates, and then you're sitting upside down.
technically it is. Actually, it's not Afterburner.
Is it
It's
not?
G-Lock.
Okay.
Here, I got it up on the screen finally. This is oops. This is the R3. These are R360s. Well, multiple ones. This is
Yeah, that's
from.
crazy.
This is from. Oh gosh, time extension. Oh, there's a Radmobile. I didn't know there was. There's only 2 games that got released for it, but I didn't know they did Radmobile.
That's interesting.
So this is from timeextension.com. These photos.
Yeah, just one of those super cool arcades that you'll never
This
see
is one they
again.
had to rescue from a field.
And there's one at the Ghost. It's backstage basically, but it's up there and it works.
And gosh, yeah, this was from. Well, these pictures here, they found one out in a random farm field. But they grabbed this thing and they tried to do a restoration on it. So
Awesome.
I don't know what happened to it, but anyway, get this. Oh, Todd Pepin rode one in '92, sucked wind at it. It was a great experience.
Yeah, it's unique, man.
Okay, so the next thing I want to bring up, now we got through the convention items. You have a collection, and I'm trying to find the slide, and now that slide disappeared on me. Here we go. For some reason, you have 1,000 or more Dragon Warrior carts.
That is correct.
What in the world are you doing with 1,000 Dragon Warrior carts, or why did you do this? I guess.
I like dumb stuff. I like pranks. I like absurdity. I like things that there's no real reason behind them. It just is what it is. The unorthodox Dragon Warrior collection, I didn't actually start it. This is all Nintendo age stuff.
Mm-hmm.
There we go. Back in the day, Nintendo age. It was a forum for Nintendo collectors, and this all starts just a couple of nerds talking on the forum. What would constitute an epic collection? That was the question. That's the whole thread. What would constitute an epic collection? And so it's just people online talking on the thread about what they thought, and over the course of the discussion, they landed on 2 things. Epic would be 2,500, mega would be 1,000. And so there was this like race to see who could get to an epic collection first. And this is the early days of collecting. And when I say early days, what's funny is if you check out my documentary, the guy who owns the first Earthbound prototype is talking about collecting back in like 1990. And that just, I get mind blown when he was talking about that. And not like little collecting. He was like CIB. That's all he did. He didn't like cart only. I'm a cart only guy. So he's telling me in 1990, he was like, no, I had about 600 something Nintendo games and they were all CIB, complete in the box, whatever you guys say. I think that's his quote in the movie. And it was just crazy that, it's like, wait, what? There were collectors back then. Like from the very beginning, there were people who were collecting these things. But to me, it's cheap this entire time, up until recently. And so when I say the early days, my bad, it's like 2010, 2014, somewhere in there. Games were still cheap. And so when they were having this conversation, Space Jockey did Dragon Warrior. and there was this guy Kevbot. He was doing Jurassic Park on the Super Nintendo. Maybe you've seen the picture of the refrigerator full of Jurassic Park, or Kevbot lying in the bathtub covered in Jurassic Park. There was a guy who I have that PMA was doing Super Mario Brothers Duck Hunt. And then there was like one or two other guys, but those were like the big three where they actually had over 100 carts and they were actively pursuing this mega / epic collection. Well, one by one, as the prices started going up on everything, all these guys that were kind of pursuing this dropped out. And Space Jockey was the last one. He was going strong with Dragon Warrior, and he had 300 something copies. And he was calling it quits. He decided he wasn't going to do it anymore, and he posted them all on eBay. And they sat on eBay for a while, and he kind of kept dropping the price. And so eventually it got to a point where it was like, I mean, that's affordable. I could do this. And I like Dragon Warrior. People were like, why? And it's like, Dragon Warrior was my first game. I got Dragon Warrior with my free subscription, or I got Dragon Warrior free with my subscription to Nintendo Power. That was how I convinced my parents to let me get Nintendo Power. Was, hey, look, they're doing this thing, and if we order now, we get this free game too. And games were, like $40-$50 back then. So paying $15 for the year subscription or whatever it was and getting a free Nintendo game, they saw the value in that. And so Dragon Warrior was my first RPG. And I love RPGs. It all starts with Dragon Warrior. So I bought the collection. I kept it going. I ramped it up. Like, he was just collecting it. I was the one, and he was keeping track. That was awesome. And so I think him keeping track of where he got all the carts was where the website comes from. And then me wanting to look at the save files and see the player names that they picked for their characters. There's a longer, more ambitious project. Don't let me forget what I'm talking about, but you were talking about CypherCon. Look at the schedule for CypherCon, because you're saying that you didn't know if anything would be there that you care about. But
Guys Gameson beer expanded into that.
Oh, I didn't know that. That's cool too. Well, my point is that one year there was this guy V Gray who made the VIG carts for Midwest Gaming Classic, but
Yeah.
he's a hacker, and so he came out early, and he was at CypherCon that year. And because I showed up to do setup, he was doing a talk on Thursday. I got so lucky that he did that talk on Thursday, not earlier in the week, because I got to go and watch his panel, and his entire panel was about hacking the NES. So my point to you is, like, it doesn't matter if you don't know how to code. There might be something, like, look at the schedule. There might be something that you're super into.
There's other stuff. I mean,
yeah, dude, that one
just
panel.
to look at old equipment.
Oh yeah,
and
all
gadgets.
their museum and stuff.
Yeah.
They do their hackathon. There's always like something to hack if you want to try that. Anyways, I've been working with V Gray, and what he figured out is that Space Jockey deleted everything. So the first 350 carts have no save data. So I thought, until V Gray started poking around with the save files and figured out that just because you deleted it, it holds on to it until I think you overwrite it. So all those deleted games, he figured out a way that I can still pull the save files from them and figure out what they name their characters. I don't know how deep the save file. I don't know if it's everything, but I know that I can get the names and for what the save files were, at least. And on top of that, with him, like, that was just like a bonus where it was like, oh wait, even if you delete it, like, it's got a backup somewhere and we can pull that information. That's awesome. The whole point for what he's doing is all this data over here, all your items, your experience points. So like right now I just do the names because I can pop in real quick and I can talk to the king, and then he says, hey, so and so, this is how many experience points you get, and that's like all I do, and then I'm done. This thing that he figured out, this code or whatever that I can execute, should pull all the data, and then it can tell me everything, where it's like, this is how many hit points they have, this is how much experience, this is how much gold, this is what they have in their inventory. It's like super sick. But
yeah,
that's a future project, because that means I got to sit down for all 1,000 cart. I mean, now we're at like 1150. I got to sit down for 1,150 carts and one by one popping them into the kazoo, execute the program file, pull the save data. You know, it's just like someday, maybe we figure out how to automate all that stuff and just write a script so it just does it for me.
That's also assuming that the batteries are still good.
They are, man. Almost every single cart I popped in, battery still works, save file still there.
It's amazing that some of these batteries are still holding the data. Yeah,
oh,
because
man.
now it's like it's 30, 35 years old now.
And they still work.
What kind of batteries are in these things? That's a real question.
Yeah. Little watch batteries, man.
Well, they didn't last in my watches. I know that much, but I don't know. Or maybe they were used, or maybe they're flashcards, for all I know. But anyway,
that's the city where you got to press up against the wall. That was where I got stuck as a kid. I didn't knowing to like press up on something and have it be hidden, and then all of a sudden you can go through. Little kid me could not figure that out. I had to wait until Nintendo Power came out with a guide, and then it was like, wait a minute, you press on a wall? There's no door there. Like, that's how young I was.
Hidden. Well, if you played Legend of Zelda, you had to push up against walls or use a bomb.
Well, see, I think that came second for me because actually, I think that's why I'm a good beta tester. That's why I tell people I'm a good beta tester because you learn with Legend of Zelda that you have to bomb every rock and burn every bush.
Yeah. Anyway, so here's the next question. Well, you got all these Dragon Warrior carts. Do you have Dragon Warrior 2, 3, or 4?
I do, and I always had 2 and 3. The only one that my parents didn't get me, I've told this story before, was Dragon Warrior 4 because it came out, late in the life cycle for the NES. Super Nintendo was out at that time, and most of the prices on Nintendo had dumped because of that. So Nintendo games were usually cheaper than Super Nintendo games. We're not now. Super Nintendo is $40 to $60, and Nintendo, you were able to, if you were lucky, you find a game for like $19.99, $29.99, $39.99. Dragon Warrior 4 was $59.99, and my parents were like, "No, every other Nintendo game is cheap. We are not spending $60 on an old Nintendo game because the Super Nintendo is out now." And so I never got it. I actually ended up buying that at a game store that I went and visited while I was at Portland Retro Gaming Expo. And they had a really nice minty copy that had all the inserts, and they wanted like $40 or something for it. I was just like, yes. And it was 60 because I texted my mom and I was like, I just paid the same amount of money you guys would have paid back in 1994 if you just bought me the game. Like, I still paid $60 for it. It held its value. You should have just bought it for me.
Well, the values of these carts have actually gone up. I mean, not the first one, but the later ones.
No, the price on the first one did go up. I accidentally bumped it during quarantine. It went from five to like 9 or 10 now. That was an accident. Prices can be manipulated, people. I've done it.
Yeah. If you're, well, I know 8-Bit Brody did the trade-up challenge with double dribble. Have you done a trade-up challenge with a copy of Dragon Warrior?
I haven't. That's interesting. No, I've never done that.
Maybe you can start with Dragon Warrior and see if you can trade up to a Dragon Warrior 4.
No, it'd be stadium events because that's the only thing I don't have. So it'd have to be this like weird goal where it's like there's only one cart I don't have. So let's see if we can do a trade up challenge. That actually is pretty good. Start with Dragon Warrior, which everybody knows me for. We're gonna trade up to a stadium events. That might actually work because it's dumb enough that, and I'm goofy enough. People might go for it.
Yeah, and you're gonna have to record it all and do a video on this.
Interesting. I mean, I posted on the website. I haven't posted. I had a kid, just in case anybody's wondering how come I don't post as much as I used to. That's why I'm being a dad. He's young right now, so he requires a lot of attention.
You also produce music? or is
No,
that still going?
I produced a documentary.
Well, it said you were a music producer at 54 and O Productions.
Yeah, because I did the soundtrack for the movie.
Okay.
And so that was me producing music, I guess.
Well, tell me about tell me about the movie.
Let me see. I think I got a
Go
box
ahead,
here.
Mike. So this movie is, and I'm gonna make
Sorry, I got
your.
my light here. Mother to Earth.
I
It's
mean,
the untold story of Earthbound for the NES. It's all about why we didn't get it, and then how it leaked out of Nintendo and was put online as Earthbound Zero, and then eventually released, 25 years after it should have come out on the Wii U Virtual Console is Earthbound Beginnings. So this is the DVD version, but we've got a Blu-ray. It's just a little further over that way. I'm not going to try and grab it. But man, who do we got to talk to? Gameplay counselors. So we talked to the guy who localized the game for Nintendo of America. We talked to one of the beta testers. So Phil Sandhop is the localizer. Matt Alderman was one of the beta testers on Earthbound. Spacebound. We're talking about Earthbound for the regular NES. This would have been Mother 1 in Japan. We talked to Frank Cifaldi from the Video Game History Foundation. He gives a little backstory about what's going on with the game and it not being released. We talked to Greg Mariotti. He was the first prototype owner. That's the guy who I was talking about, the collector back in the 90s. He got the first prototype, I think, back in 94.
yeah.
And then he sold it in 98. And that was where the game got dumped online. That's like the only reason we know about it. That was where we got Earthbound Zero. And we talked to the hacker, Neo Demi Force, about what, dumping the game and how they got it, and then why Earthbound Zero, where'd the zero come from? And then we had the luck of, we got to talk to Keiichi Suzuki, the composer over in Japan. He composed the music for both Mother and Mother 2. Yeah, I'm trying to think. I mean, we talked to so many cool people. Those were kind of the big ones where it's like the story of the game being made and then the localizing of it and then, the shelving basically is what happened. And
And
then
there are only
prototypes leaving and then getting dumped online. All that stuff was super early on. It's a lot about, the early forums like Zephyr's Domain and at the time, Neo Demi Force NES World was around back then too. It was super cool getting to talk to all these people who were there at like the very early beginning of what I would consider NES dev, the beginning of indie Nintendo developers. I mean, that was how that all started, was these guys doing translations and stuff. The Earthbound dump was just kind of a special thing that happened to happen because prototypes didn't exist. I mean, that's what they say in the movie. Prototypes didn't exist back then. So the fact that like all of a sudden an unreleased game popped up, they all thought it was fake. They were like, it's fake. It's a fan translation, because they were doing fan translations at the time. That was like the scene. The early hacking scene for Nintendo was doing English translations for games like Final Fantasy 2 and 3 and stuff like that.
And well, prototypes were all over for Atari 2600, but not for Nintendo. Took a while for them to start emerging.
Yeah. So the movie itself is like an hour and 36 minutes long, and it's all about Earthbound. But because we got to talk to all these important people, it's the physical release is what I truly enjoy. There's 6 hours of special features. Phil Sandhop worked very early on at Nintendo as a gameplay counselor and was a part of like the R&D Q&A team up until about the year 2000. So these people, I was just like Earthbound, and then you guys have any other questions? And it was like yes, and then I just asked them anything I could think of. So that's where all the special features come in, because they were telling us stories that I knew nobody had ever heard, and we wanted, and this, for the sake of preservation, we wanted to get that stuff out there. And so the 6 hours of special features on the DVD and Blu-ray That's what all that stuff is. Like the best example is the story of Justin Bailey, the code for Metroid. Phil Sandhop just casually mentioned while we were interviewing with him. He was like, "Oh, I took that call." You're like, "What do you mean you took that call?" And he was like, "Yeah, this kid named Justin Bailey called in to the gameplay counselor line and said, 'Hey, I just put my name in the Metroid code and this like weird thing happened.'" And Phil Sandhop was the guy for Metroid. That was his game. Like they would transfer Metroid questions to him because he knew so much about it. So that call got transferred to Phil, and Phil took the call, and so that's where we got
You
Justin
could,
Bailey. And it's just
but
him
the
just
game
telling that
was
story.
not intentionally programmed with that code, though, because
No, but when it gets shared and we all like hear about it, and it's like you get everything, you know, all the powers. And I think she may be in the swimsuit or the bikini or whatever too. I can't remember if it's that. It's like everything, and I'm pretty sure it was shared later on in like Counselor's Corner, you know, tips and tricks in
yeah.
Nintendo Power, and it's like that's where it came from. That kid just happened to call in. And then we were lucky enough that while we're talking to Phil about Earthbound, you know, those were the kind of stories that he was sharing with us. It's just like, oh my gosh, man, I can't believe we had this on camera. It was great.
Well, there's this gentleman on YouTube, was it Larry, who did, gosh, I like to remember. Oh, Larry Bundy Jr. He did a video where you could put in certain codes. I gotta make sure the cats are not that. Cody's looming back there, and I think he's up to something. He's hopped on my lap a few times during this podcast and took a nip out of me a few times because I got tired of him being on my lap, or I got uncomfortable
It's
and
time
put
for
him on the
treats.
floor.
He's trying to tell you it's treat time.
Oh, he gets more than enough. He just wants me to cater to him and not be sitting in front of this computer doing this podcast. Anyway, he did some videos on Metroid where he actually, you could put in certain Metroid codes that would brick, I guess, brick a console or something.
Interesting. I mean, it makes sense. Yeah. If you're going to sit there and figure out that code mechanics, I'm sure there are some combinations that it doesn't like.
Well, and they were offensive passcodes too, F-bombs and vulgarities, and you put that in and you would brick the doggone cartridge.
Well,
And
I think that's on purpose. I think that you weren't supposed to enter that stuff, and I think that they might have had some that like if you tried to do it, it would do that.
well, one of these codes was engage Ridley mother effer, and that would freak out the cartridge. If you entered that code on, gosh, I don't know if it's the Nintendo Switch or the 3DS or one of those portables, it would brick the console. It would cause some sort of, it would.
That's how you know it's the same ROM and that they didn't do anything because it still does it.
Yeah. I haven't dared tried to do it myself. I mean, it'd be safer to do it in an emulator than the actual console because I don't know if I dare do that. But yeah, the 3DS, it would wreck that thing. Ugh. But anyway, so you've made some travels to Illinois. You've been to Galvin Ghost. Oh, Todd Pepin wants. Well, one, it's a simple answer. You would not it would, I guess, crash the emulator perhaps, but you can just restart the emulator. But it's the hardware you're worrying about. It's the hardware that gets affected from these codes that you're worried about. It's not going to break the computer because, you have to write software for the Windows environment that are well-behaved applications, and plus, if you do something illegal, it will just crash. Yeah. Well, no, because you're running a ROM. You're just loading a ROM. It's not altering the ROM in any way. It's not gonna. It's like you're not. It's not kind of like a virus infecting a file and then overriding part of the file, and then when you open it, it would execute the payload, kind of like the old, viruses from the past. No, it should be safe because you're running a virtual environment, which is how they found out how bad the security risks were from running a new install of Windows XP, because somebody, I guess, the internet took 10 minutes to basically make the thing so infected with spyware and malware and who knows what else. Yeah, 10 minutes sitting on the internet doing nothing, just being connected. That's all it took.
I believe it.
So it wouldn't hurt the ROM. Wouldn't hurt the ROM file, I don't think. So let's go back. Okay. Actually, I should ask you this. Besides the Dragon Warrior carts, what other games do you have that you're proud of having?
Got my blue chiller cart. I'm known for the blue chiller cart. There's not, I mean, like 6 of these are known to exist. Somehow I got lucky. I got one a long time ago. I was looking early on.
There's only 6 copies of Chiller in existence?
No, in the blue share data, like Color Dream shell, like that.
Okay.
The blue shell is what makes it unique. It shouldn't be in that shell. It should be in the gray one, like Death Race or Shockwave. I got lucky. I mean, I found that, over 10 years ago on eBay for like $125. And, if somebody asked me what it's worth, it'd be like, I don't know, because only one other one sold after that. And it only sold for $250. It was like a year or two later. It was like, and then that's it. And I haven't seen one sell since then. So I couldn't tell you. And now people know that it's rare and what it is. So back then, it was just me looking.
Well, it could be as worth as much as one of the copies of the Nintendo World Championships.
I mean, so it's not, the problem is it's not as popular. That's why I always talk about popularity versus rarity. It's rarer than those for a fact, because we know there's less known copies of this, but it doesn't have the hype. There's a lot of hype behind NWC, so I don't know that it would ever equal in value, but in terms of rarity, it's definitely rare. Same with stadium events. Again, that's what's so weird. I don't have stadium events, but I've got blue chiller over there. I recently got a copy of Mahjong, like within the last couple weeks. That guy's probably laughing, like, "Oh, you're showing off that Mahjong cart you got from me." It's like, yeah, I am.
Have you played it?
No, I haven't. I mean, like, I really got that super recently, within probably the past couple of weeks. But I've been looking for that for a while, and it's the same deal. To me, Mahjong's rarer than stadium events. It's rarer than NWC. It's not worth anywhere near what those are, but as far as I know, it's a rare cart. It was on my list of like things that I've been trying to acquire because I think it's cool. I like
now, that's not a Famicom cart. It's
Hong Kong. It's a Hong Kong region. I'm not sure what it would play on if it's NTSC. If I could just pop it into my Famicom, if it would play.
But that's shaped like a regular Nintendo cart, isn't it?
It is. Yeah.
It should play in an NES, shouldn't it?
I don't know. That's what I'm saying. I don't know what region it is. Yeah, I guess if it is NTSC, I might be able to pop it in there and see what happens.
Question in the chat. What's your favorite item in your collection that isn't a game cart?
Oh. I mean, I am a big fan of this. I've got this back here.
Boy and his blob.
This is a boy and his blob jelly bean cart.
Jar. Jelly bean
Jar.
jar.
Yeah,
Yeah.
jelly bean jar. Sorry. Yeah. I'm trying to hold it so you
That
can
is
see it.
a natural, yes, that is a natural piece of paraphernalia.
And then if you can see, we were talking about Dan Kitchen. So we had Dan Kitchen at Let's Play back in the day. We were doing this thing called Play the Creator, where we would do a tournament for a game, and then whoever won the tournament got to play the creator of the game. And so we had done John Newcomer. John, I'm like blanking on his name. It's been so long. The guy who did Joust.
Mm-hmm.
And then, man, oh, we had Warren Davis. Warren Davis came out. We did Cubert one year, and then we had Dan Kitchen come out, and we did a tournament on crackpots for the Atari. And he's super super nice guy, and when we stayed in touch, and somehow after the fact, I found out that he was the game design lead for Grandma's Boy, the movie. So I'm talking about the film Grandma's Boy from Happy Madison Productions. Dan was who produced the video games that they use in the movie. So he did Eternal Death Slayer 3, and I'm blanking on what the other one is right now. But I found out about that after the fact, and I'm a film guy. So I reached back out to Dan and I was like, Dan, I just happened to be looking at your resume and I saw that you did this stuff for Grandma's Boy. Tell me about that. And so he was like he was the guy who like look over everything and make sure like, yeah, this really does feel like a game office. He said he donated a bunch of posters and stuff that they use in the background at the gaming company in the movie. Well, anyways, we stayed in touch, and so this past year, earlier this year, January for ATG Expo, he came down. We did a screening of Grandma's Boy, um, and then afterwards, I did like a Q&A with him where we just like sat down and I talked to him about the movie. Because of all of that, I had met Gary Kitchen, his brother, and David Crane before at Midwest Gaming Classic, and I had floated the idea. I think he reached out to me and said, well, hey, what would you think about my brother and David Crane coming down? And it was like, I would love for them to come down. Let's do it. And so while they were there, I took this down to the convention this year. This thing never leaves my house. I was so afraid. And I don't know if we can, I got
I
them to sign
saw
it.
a signature on it. Yes, I can see it.
So I think that's Gary. And yeah.
I
And then
see
that's
that one
David.
too.
So I had them sign it. And it was awesome. I pulled it out. I thought that they would geek out a little bit more because I geek out over it. And they were just like, oh, it's a jelly bean jar. Haven't seen one of those in a while. And then they just like started talking amongst each other. And they were like, how many do we do of those? And it was like, I think we did 100. I still have 2 of them. I got one sitting on my desk right now. I think I donated the second one to the museum. It was just, they just started talking about their promo items for stuff back in the day. And it was just, I was just there listening to them, chat about stuff for a minute. It was just cool watching them kind of dip back and reminisce for a second. And I just happened to like be there. But no, the jelly bean jar, I've never seen another one. And now I've got a number for it too, right? They made 100 of them back in the day, and then they said that they went out to merchandising people or publications as hype for the game before it came out. There's 69 flavors of jelly beans in there right now. There's
Wow.
five of each flavor. They're not all pleasant. I do have some of Birdie Bot's every flavor beans in there, so there's about 10 that are disgusting and awful. And I feel like
Oh,
that
I
fits.
remember that commercial.
Yeah, for a boy and his blob, I was like, the more flavors, the better. There's no telling what he's going to turn into when he eats, dirt or puke or grass.
Okay, so you have you've been to the mid. So yes, you made several trips to the Midwest. Where's some of the conventions you've been to besides Midwest Gaming? I know you did the summit.
I'm regular at Portland Retro Gaming Expo. I started going to, that was the first event that I ever went to, Portland Retro 2012. And that was what it sucked me in. I mean, all the shows that we're talking about, the fact that I run into you so often, I mean, that all just goes back to Portland. I went to Portland and I couldn't, what is this? I can't. And then I felt like I was so behind too, because these shows have been going on for a while. And that was when I went to my first show. And I was just hooked. I was hooked. And so again, there were these Nintendo age gatherings. Robin Mahara, you know Robin, I'm sure.
Yes.
Robin used to do a barbecue at his house, and all the Nintendo age people would go over to Robin's place and have dinner on like Friday night and just kind of sit and talk. And so I think that was where I started hearing about other shows. Or I was probably asking. I'm always asking questions, and so I'm sure that I was like, this is amazing. What else should I be looking into? And so that was when I, heard Too Many Games in Philly, which I've gone to twice now. Once way back in the day, and then once last summer, where we screened the documentary, and I was, was kind of like a special guest or whatever. And then Midwest Gaming Classic was one of the other big ones that people talked about. Those were like the big three. They were like Too Many Games, because Paul, who was a member on Nintendo Age, ran Too Many Games, and then Dan was doing Midwest Gaming Classic, and then Chuck and Rick were doing Portland. And so that was what I did. Is the next year I went to Portland again because it was so much fun, and then I think I went to Too Many Games, and then the next year I went to Midwest Gaming Classic, and then the next year I went to MagFest because Fat Chris had been bugging me, and then oh man, we had such a good time. He at MagFest, he was like, everybody just leaves their doors open. It's like college, and so,
See you, Todd.
Yeah, man. See you at the anniversary. Fat Chris was the dude who had his door open. He was the guy who always had the door open, and it was just like a constant party. And then that's funny because that was how the documentary happened. Was Fat Chris was friends with Evan Butler, who's the director of the documentary. And so I'm just hanging out in Fat Chris's room. Evan comes in. I've got my camera. And so when they came up with the idea for the movie, Evan knew me as the guy with the camera from Fat Chris's room. I was always filming. And so he hit me up, and that was how I ended up producing the documentary. It's these little connections, man. You make friends with these people, you go around, you make more friends, and then, you just start doing cool stuff.
Yes.
Like podcasts.
Right. Well, you mentioned Robin. So he got with Thor Ackerland, and they're doing a run of these.
They released them. I was at SoCal Retro last weekend helping run the Tetris World Championship, and they launched the Kickstarter while I was there. So I did not get a gold cart. I'm not signed up for the gold right now. Aftermarket games is what I'm into. That's my collection. Everything you see in the game room or in that picture you showed earlier, those are all aftermarket games. Those are all homebrews. Those are all reproductions. And so it is a bummer that I missed out on the gold cart. I think it was $400. And it's like, if it's $400 now, I can only imagine what it's going to be like when I have to buy it off of eBay. And there's only 35 of them, which means I need one of those 35 people to sell their copy, and I have a feeling it's going to be a minute. I bet you the people who bought those carts actually care. You know what I'm saying? I need somebody who's a reseller.
And I have one of the copies of the Nintendo Campus Challenge 25th anniversary cart.
Yeah.
Which I'm not going to let go.
Mine's up here. Your cart, right? Because they did one for you, didn't they? They did one. They did one for. They did the 25th for Robin and Thor, and then they did NCC for you.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I signed the labels and included my trading card in each one of them, and wrote my long-winded story about how the tournament went down.
Here, hold on, because I think I got mine right here. I'm excited.
I got mine too. I see it over there. And there it goes. Wow.
Yeah.
Ah. Boy, I wrecked the dang.
Look at that. I knew it was right there.
Yeah.
I'm 5 of 25.
Well, this one's not numbered because this was
Ooh.
mine. This is my since I did all these other carts, or did the signing all the carts and stuff. Yeah, the back of the cart has, each cart has my signature, all the ones that were put out and circulated. But mine's not numbered because this was
It's yours.
the collaborators copy.
Yeah.
I guess.
I think Uncle Tuss did the printing for that stuff.
Yes. And I wrote, gosh.
So that's the kind of stuff I'm into. Yeah, everything you showed in that picture, that's all aftermarket games. I realized this past year.
Yeah, this is the long-winded.
Yeah, no, it is. It's real tiny print too.
I'm long-winded. I can't help it.
I realized this last year that if somebody were to come over to my game room, that they would want to see the aftermarket collection. They don't care about my box CIBs for Nintendo. Everybody has box CIBs. You want to see the weird stuff that I have, and so I boxed everything. The only thing that's still out that I would consider like regular Nintendo stuff is my NES set. I got my full NES set out. I got my screw variants, 3-screw, 5-screw set, and then that's it. Past that, everything else is aftermarket now, because if somebody came over to my house, that's what they're going to want to see. They want to see the aftermarket collection. So that's all this game room is. That, and then really, really rare stuff that I've got over here in my Nintendo cabinet.
So the arcade. Tell me about the arcades you've been to. Besides Gab and Ghost, you've traveled around the country. I assume there, and obviously free play. Where else have you famous prominent arcades you've been to?
Man, it's sad because some of them are closed now.
Yeah, I know.
Unfortunately, there was a cool gaming place in Vegas that was at the Old Strip. It was like off the Old Strip. It wasn't like right on, but it was like go down one of the streets off to the side, and there was a cool gaming place there. And I think it's gone already.
What was that? That wasn't the Pinball Museum?
No. The Pinball Museum's like its own thing in that warehouse.
Yeah.
Right? The Ghost, growing up, it was Golfland in Phoenix, Arizona. And I'm told that Golfland is still there. When I was growing up, it was 2 stories. The first floor was kind of the open one. The second story was if you were throwing like a party. Both stories were just arcades. I had one experience that somebody had their birthday party on the second floor, and I think everything might have been free play. Like it was either that or they gave us such a large thing of tokens that it just never ended. Because I just remember I got to play everything that I never would have played. And so that's why it's like, it may have been free play up on the second floor, but you only got to go up there if they'd rented it out or something. I just remember going to the second floor one time and having this unique experience of playing all these games I never would have played, because it was expensive, a quarter. And like, maybe you get $1 from your parents. I don't know. Something like that. Golfland still around. That's where some of the water slides from Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure are from Golfland. That was funny. You were like watching Bill and Ted's. It was like, oh, I've gone down that water slide. I know that place. There's a arcade down in Florida that I've been to that I think is pretty infamous. They were in the news most recently because I think they let a pornographic movie be shot at their location. After hours.
I have not heard about this one.
After hours, but people found out that it happened, and so it became a news story about like, this arcade let a pornographic movie be shot there. Is that where you want to let your kids go tonight at 9? But But it's a really nice arcade, and the dude who owns it knows his stuff. And there's really cool machines in there that you're not going to see it. It it's not as big as the Ghost, but in terms of like the quality of what he has in there, like he's got Galloping Ghost type stuff. I'm trying to think. It was some atomic game that he had where there's like only two of them in the entire country, and they've got it out on the floor.
Atomic.
Yeah, it was something about atomic testing or something. I can't remember. It like goes up and it was kind of thin. I had to like look. The point is, he's got rare stuff, and the rare stuff is out on the floor. It's not, tucked away. It's no, he's all about people experiencing it. So everything is, for touching, which is cool when you got rare stuff like that. He shipped over from Japan one of those like table flipping games. I got to figure out what that arcade is, man.
The table flipping game, I did see that. That was at Logan's Arcade in Chicago. I don't know if they still have it.
Okay.
But I saw it in action and never seen. Yeah, it's kind of bizarre. Question from the chat. Are you into fighting games?
What's the BWT?
The Bloody Wars tournament.
Oh, I used to be. I used to be pretty good. I was very much a Mortal Kombat, Street Fighter kid. Those games came out. I was like in middle school. Oh man, wasted so much money on those games. But I got good. I mean, I was really good at Mortal Kombat. I used to be able to beat the arcade game 1/4. And I say that it's like I don't know what the dip switch settings were back then. I just know that I would go up to the local gas station, and for some reason they had the latest and greatest arcades. They only had like 2, but they were the first place to have Mortal Kombat in my town. They were the first place to have Street Fighter, and it was within walking distance from where I lived. So I would go up there a lot. They had a pool table too. So it was just, the kids would congregate up there and, rack your quarters. Everybody had their quarters up. But that's it. I mean, back in the day, I didn't keep going. I was okay at Mortal Kombat 2, and then it's like the further they go, the worse I get. Same with Street Fighter. It's like Street Fighter 2, Turbo, Alpha. It's like, no, like just Street Fighter. I was good at Street Fighter. I was pretty good with Vega. So once they added the 4 bosses, that's the version that I really remember was when you could play as the bosses. That was fun.
So we're going to go. Now, typically when I have a guest on, I ask him this at the beginning, but I didn't do that this time around. What got you into gaming at the very beginning?
My older brother. I've got my older brother, my brother Jeff. Shout out to Jeff. What up, Jeff? He's 13 years older than I am. I'm the youngest in the family, and he was in college, while I was growing up. I didn't see him a whole lot. He would come back for holidays, and I have a distinct memory of him coming back for Christmas one year, and he brought an Atari 2600. And it's like, that's it. Choplifter, Missile Command, Pitfall, Asteroids.
Chopper Command, actually. Choplifter didn't come out for the 2600. They did find the prototype recently.
Chopper Command, my bad. Sorry.
Yeah.
But no, those were the games. Yeah, oh yeah, you're right. I'm like, now I'm thinking of Choplifter. It's like this, whatever. But no, Chopper Command. My dad flew helicopters, so that was why we had Chopper Command. Those are like, I just remember, and then just playing that nonstop. And then after that, I have this distinct memory of there were these guys. My mom tells me they were like these college age dudes that lived next door. They were renting the house. There was like 4 of them, roommates or whatever. And they got a Nintendo really early on. And I don't remember why, but for some reason I went next door. It was usually because I threw like a Frisbee over the fence and I needed to go get it like from their backyard. And so I think I was going over to get something out of their backyard, and they were playing Super Mario Brothers. And I was just like, what's this?
Yeah.
And they let me play. And I remember I couldn't jump over the hole in level 1. So every time I walked down into the pit because I couldn't. That's how young I was. Like, I was 5 or 6, somewhere in there, and I couldn't grasp jumping over the hole. I made it over the pipes, but the
Yeah.
hole, I couldn't do the hole for some reason. I just kept dying right there. But
Because you didn't know
that's my
how to
first
do the
memory.
run?
Yeah, exactly. I didn't know how to run probably, so I was just walking and then falling into it. But then, yeah, I was just in love, man. I loved it. I loved the Nintendo. The Nintendo was so much fun. I spent so much time playing games on that. A lot of games. I'm good at a lot of Nintendo games. I have to be careful now though because I haven't picked stuff up in a while. So somebody will challenge me to something I said I'm good at, and it'll be like, I haven't played this game in like 40 years, dude. 30 years, my bad.
This goofball here has taken over the table here.
One orange brain cell.
Didn't have much cord here either. Yeah, he's taken over the desk, and now it's going to impede. As long as I don't need the keyboard, I should be fine. But good grief!
That's funny.
Yeah,
I never sold anything either. So part of my Nintendo set over here on the shelf is the games that I grew up with. Like I know for sure I still have my own Dragon Warrior. I ran across it the other day and I chuckled because I was like, I know that's mine. It's separate from the rest of the collection.
Yeah. But what was the game that actually got you hooked?
Oh,
I know.
Man.
Do you even remember the first game you played?
I mean, Mario was the first game I played, and then like a couple years go by, I think, before anybody else in the neighborhood gets anything. Because I wasn't the first. I had to go over to my buddy's house and play his, and then eventually I got mine because I probably just kept pestering my parents.
Yeah.
The earliest memories I have for games, it's Metroid, Zelda, and Contra.
Okay.
And then there's a splattering of my buddy who I used to go play his games. Their dad was in the army, and so a lot of the stuff that they played was army related. So I played a lot of Russian Attack, a lot of POW, a lot of Iron Tank, a lot of Curie Warriors. Like I played all that stuff because that was what they were into. They were super into military stuff, and so we just played all these like war games growing up.
Space Invader.
And then I think that when I got my Nintendo, that's where you see Dragon Warrior come in. That's where Zelda comes in. I don't think they liked any of that stuff. I think that was I got mine and then I started playing that, and those were the games that I loved.
Space Invaders was my hook.
Oh, you know what? Probably Galaga then. Like, good point, because before Nintendo, I would have been playing arcades, and I have always had an affinity for Galaga. Always. Galaga's been there. Galaga, and then now that you mentioned, I have these early memories of Donkey Kong, because all the Pizza Huts back then, they all had cocktail cabs, and I remember that I would always play the Donkey Kong at the Pizza Hut when we would go in, because back then you used to go into Pizza Hut, hit up the salad bar. That was the thing back then. So Donkey Kong and Galaga are probably also up there with some of the earliest games I remember playing when it comes to arcades, for sure.
You also did so yesterday you did a taping for a documentary, Rarity Retro Video Game Collecting Modern Era. Tell me about that.
So this is the sequel. Edward has made a movie already. It's called Rarity. It's out. I think it came out in 2021. And it was a who's who. I don't know most of the people. I knew some of the people he interviewed, like John Riggs and the immortal John Hancock. These are people that I'm fortunate enough that I knew him from the forum back in the day. I've run into him at shows. We're friendly. John Hancock will say hi to me, and it's just like, I'm honored. It's like I'm not 100% sure why you know me, but he does, and he always says hi. We always sit and chat. Just I'm small fry compared to these guys, so it's just cool that I'm lucky enough that I happen to know all of them. So, anyways, the first one, it's about game collecting. Now it's real interesting because I forgot to ask Edward. There was a movie that I worked on a while back. It was called Bits of Yesterday, and Bits of
Mhm.
Yesterday to me feels like the precursor to Rarity, because Bits of Yesterday is about the game, about the collecting community, but it's before the prices explode. And
Right.
so there's a lot of going out to flea markets and like garage sales and stuff. And then Rarity to me is like, no, it's a market now, and there's a business behind these old video games because they're worth money. And so it was a little more high end as opposed to the other movie that I had been a part of. Well, I missed out on the first one. I did have
Yeah.
some people ask me, they were like, "Oh, he didn't interview you?" And I was like, "What are you talking about?" And then I think he did his premiere at Mann's Chinese Theater, and I was like real kind of bummed out about that because I didn't get to premiere my movie at Mann's. That would have been freaking awesome. So I was jealous. Jealous is the word. Like, oh, he got to do that. I wish I could have done that. So I'm at Midwest Gaming Classic, 2-3 months ago, and I'm hanging out with one of the guys from Nintendo Age, sign collector guy, and he'd mentioned, he was like, "Oh, did Ed reach out to you?" And I asked him. He likes to go by Edward, but I think he said Ed, and I was just like, "Who's Ed? I don't know who Ed is." And he was like, Rarity. He's doing a sequel. I just got done shooting a section for him, and I was just like, "No, I wasn't in the first one. I didn't get asked to be in the second one. That's a bummer." And he was like, "Well, he's talking about aftermarket games. Like you should reach out to him." He's like, "No, I'm going to reach out to him and let him know about who you are and what you're into." And it was like, "Okay, cool." And so that was how that happened. Sign collector guy put me in touch with him, and Edward sent me like, "Here's what we're discussing. Do you have any stories?" And it was like every single thing he was talking about. It was like, "Yeah, I got stories about that." Or I've got something in the collection I can show. Just basically every box he had, it was like, "Yeah, I can tick that box, no problem." But the aftermarket stuff, that was, kind of where I'm the expert. So it was like, "Yeah, oh yeah, if you're talking about homebrew things, like let me get in on that." And so I got to talk about some of these games up here. This is like the first ever homebrew, and then this was like a second disappeared, and then garage cart, like, the heavy hitters basically. It's the first homebrew. I showed this to him too, and we talked about it. But this is Solar Wars. This is like the first homebrew ever made, and it wasn't sold. This is just it was a demo cart that Chris Covell made for somebody to write a magazine article, and then they never wrote the article,
Mm.
and then they sold the cart, and I ended up with it. But that's the first homebrew game ever made for Nintendo. It's a what, a port of, is it tank where you just like shoot, you like angle, and then you shoot at the other tank.
Okay.
It's real basic, is what I'm saying. It's just
I
a
like
port.
Scorched Earth.
Yeah, 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 yeah. But he did it from the ground up, and so that's the beginning of the indie dev scene, whatever you want to call it, for Nintendo, and that's what I'm into, man. I think I don't do any of that stuff. I was just so enamored with the fact that people were. It just, I couldn't believe it. And so now I'm just here to support it. And that was where the aftermarket archive came from. It was my effort to preserve what's happening. Uh, I was doing it while it was taking place, already thinking down the line. And it's not as big as I'd like it to be. I'd like to have a website, and there's more stuff I'd like to do with it. But the goal was for me to be able to answer questions, and I have done that where people, there's something they want to know about a release, and somebody was like, "Oh, ask Ferris. Ferris will know." And I'm able to come in here and I can grab stuff off the shelf and like open it and just be like, "Yeah, what do you want to know? I got it right here." And I have done that. Over the years. There are times where it's like something that nobody made a lot of, and I happen to have it. It's like I can just go grab it and I can tell you.
This guy. Again.
I'm in my game room and I got the door shut. Otherwise, I'd have like 4 cats and 4 dogs in here.
Well, they will knock on the door.
Oh, they just,
The
yeah.
other one.
I had one scratching earlier. You guys probably couldn't hear it because I got my headphones
This
in.
is my other one, and
Yeah,
she's kept quiet the entire time.
I saw her in the background. You got a cat. It's a calico, right?
Yes, and she's elderly. 17.
Man,
But she's done well.
my wife and I had a kitty that lived to be 21.
Okay, my stepbrother had two cats that lived to be 23 and 21.
Yeah.
And yeah, that's insanity. All right, yeah. I was gonna mention, yes, I've been kind of waiting for. I've been wanting to be in a video game documentary. I hadn't been one yet. There's one in production. Uh, Ghost Lord, The Quest for Dark Presence, which
Oh
is
yeah.
supposed to come out sometime this year. I don't know how far they are along.
Editing's tough.
Yeah, I
Cut
know that
anybody
for a
who's trying
fact.
anybody who's trying to make a movie, cut them some slack because editing is tough and it takes a long, long time. And if you want it to be good, just let them do their thing. That's what I always say. Took
Well,
us
I
6
produced something. I produced a weekly wrestling show for how many years? And yes, and I basically had very few reruns until it was retired. But yeah, I kind of know the feeling.
Yeah.
But I hope I see it sometime in the next few months. But the video game that the documentary is about is not out on the arcade floor yet.
Someday. I've played it. I mean, it feels like every once in a while he'll demo it because I know I've played it at least once. I just don't remember when or where.
Well, the last time I played it, it was at C2E2 because they took it out there a month or two ago.
Well, right on.
Well, last month actually. So I don't know. I don't. So there's been speculation as to when will this game get out? Will it get out by anniversary? Well, I hope it gets out before ever or by anniversary day because it's been in production for how many years now? Oh, look at this. Oh, look at this. Who is this guy?
That's a
Southeast.
convention. We have a convention talking smack.
Wow. Okay. Welcome in, by the way. Please, I hope you can subscribe to my Twitch channel. Thank you for
Southeast
joining
Game
us.
Exchange happening in South Carolina, and I think that it's coming up next month. I want to say July. It's like July 6th through the 9th or something like that. I'm out of the country with my family. Is the only reason that I won't be there, and it's a bummer. Sorry that I won't be
By the
SAG
way,
this
I
year.
need NBA Jam Tournament Edition for the Super NES because 2 years in a row I played for a guitar at Midwest Gaming Classic and was beaten. I can get the Genesis version, but they played the Super NES version, so I want the Super NES version for me to practice on. Oh gosh, what's this? Almost this. I don't understand that one.
Now they're talking. They're talking smack to each other in the comments now.
Okay.
Hey, they're here. Thanks for the views, you guys. Appreciate the support.
Thank you. I'm yeah, and they're new first time viewers joining in on the stream, and I hope you'll be back. Galvin Ghost, yes, they have their anniversary week. You're coming in for anniversary. What do you think Game 1000 will be?
I don't know.
What would you choose?
I don't think there's any. He's done all the what I consider known stuff for the most part. You know what I would love to see? That guy was asking about fighting games earlier. I used to work at the movie theater growing up, and all the movie theaters have arcades. We had Tekken, and there was me and this other manager at the theater, and we were trading times how quick we could beat the game. Again, I don't know what the dip switch settings were. I just know it was the game that was brought in. It was there. We used to play Tekken, and we were chipping away at how fast we could beat the game. And it was like started off at, let's say, 4 minutes, and then we were getting down 350, 340, and then we were like in the 3.5 minute range where we were blowing through that game. I'm talking beating the entire game from beginning to end.
Right.
We were doing it
Speed
like
run.
3.5 minutes. Yeah. And so I left to go on a trip with my high school to Europe for 2 weeks. I came back I'm walking through the lobby to go upstairs to the manager's office, and I happen to like look over, and my buddy Scott Carlson, I'm giving you shout out to Scott Carlson, who is not a gamer. He they're talking smack while I'm trying to tell the story. He had done it in like a minute and 39 seconds. It was a minute something. I know that it was so much quicker than the times that we were putting up before that I never played it again. And then I told Fat Chris about this, and Fat Chris was like, "Oh, I'd love to see you do that." And I said, "Good luck, dude. Nobody ever has a Tekken arcade." And he didn't believe me. And so he went to arcade and he looked it up. There are only 6 arcades in the entire country that actually have Tekken. That's it.
Well, Pete Hahn has the speedrun score for Tekken 3.
Blew that shit out of the water. And I know how good Pete Hahn is. We fucked that game up. I'm sorry I cussed. But, dude,
That's all right.
We mastered that game. We had that, man. And Fat Chris, like, you know, I tell him these stories about these arcade things that happened back in the day when I was growing up. There's no record of it because we were just playing arcades. But then he wanted me to show him, and that was how we figured out that nobody has a Tekken arcade.
Pete Hahn has. There we go. We're back.
Yeah,
I think.
Just nobody has a Tekken arcade. So. And
the original Tekken.
Original Tekken. And that's the thing is he was like, "You mean Tekken 2?" And I'm like, "I'm almost positive I don't." And then we went and played some of the other ones and they didn't play right. And I was like, "No, dude, I'm almost positive original Tekken." That's it. Look, 6 places. Those are the only 6 places you can play Tekken in the entire country.
Well, documented anyway.
Yeah, there might be some more out there. These are the people who are participating, you know.
And the cat just bumped me.
But no,
his tail is flipping flipping around on this table, and I had to pick up the keyboard and lift it over him, and now he's looking at me funny. It's like, how dare you disturb my slumber? Anyway.
Yeah,
we got another comment here. Oh, he left finally. Thank you. God grief.
That's funny. I believe that.
Tekken 3... I did a Tekken 3 tournament. I got 3rd. That was a Blade Wars tournament. That was my best performance. But then again, I was good at Tekken 3. And then the weeks leading up to the Tekken tournament, I got it on a PlayStation emulator and played Nina, which was kind of my go-to the entire time, even back then. And practiced kind of doing the moves and some of the trickier stuff on opponents and got pretty far in the tournament, but doggone, I was huffing and puffing. It took yeah, it was a lot more intense than I expected, and it's like I wasn't used to that. I don't really play a lot of fighting game tournaments. I certainly didn't do Combo Breaker.
Yeah, I'm not good at. That's where you lose me, man. Combo breakers, combos. I'm out.
Well, they did Tekken 8. That was the final at Combo Breaker. Would I have done very good against them guys? No, probably not. Anyway, so you think original Tekken could be a Game 1000?
Well, I know they don't have it.
Yes.
That's what gets tough is like you have to think of a game that's not already out on the floor.
Right.
And that's where
or it could be your Gamer of the Year choice.
Yeah. That's what makes it tough is there's already almost 1,000 games out there and it's like you name something and it's like, no, it's already there. Well, what about blank? No, he already has it, you know. Tekken's the only one I happen to know that he doesn't have. And so it's like I'll throw out Tekken.
I know they don't have the original Tekken. They don't have Tekken 2 on the floor. They just have 3 Tekken Tag.
I was going to say Tekken Tag.
They might have Polybius. That really... Yeah, I played some sort of imagining of Polybius, and you had it at Let's Play.
Yeah, that was part of Rogue Synapse sponsoring the arcade back in the day.
So
It's interesting. I mean, I know that Retro World Series is being silly, but I don't know. He doesn't have any homebrew games out on the floor at the Ghost, does he? He has prototypes, like development ones that were actually going to be made for production, but I can't think. He doesn't like Last Starfighter, the Tron game. Like I can think of some homebrew arcade games, and he doesn't have any of that stuff, does he? He's purely old
I'm not
arcades.
aware of. I'm not aware of any homebrew arcades.
Oh,
Um,
well, that's the guy who is bringing our arcades for Let's Play. He had some special stuff.
yeah, Last
They've
Starfire
got
Bullet.
home, and then because they have homebrew pinballs, they'll have the homebrew
Right.
pinballs at Midwest every year.
Yeah. Well, yes, they do bring in some homebrew arcade games at Midwest Gaming. So yeah, I am aware of them. I've seen them. I've played a few of them. But no, Doc doesn't have any homebrews.
I know
Uh,
he doesn't have the Killer Queen, but have you played the other game that the Killer Queen people made? Oh, it's like Black Knight or something like that.
I don't think so.
It's
There's
interesting. It's like a mobile game kind of. It's you're driving like a motorcycle and you have to like stay on the road. And if you don't stay on the road, you crash.
I hadn't seen it.
It was interesting for because that's a new arcade game that's actually, being produced. It's in production by a company and it's the only one that I know of besides Killer Queen.
I do know for a fact that I don't believe he has any games from the 2020s. He
Mm,
has a few, and I can probably count them on one hand, games from the 20 teens, maybe less than 10.
it's gonna be
Um,
like sequels or that really awesome Alien game, like the shooter for Alien. That thing seems really new.
he has, gosh, what was that game? He has a homebrew. Actually, there was a homebrew. He does have a homebrew game. Um, it's kind of like it's for the Neo Geo. It started out being released for all the other classic consoles, and then they were convinced to do a version for the Neo Geo cabinets, and he got that. I'm trying. Now I got to pull it up.
Okay.
Doggone it, because it ended up being a T20 game, and now I'm trying to get the game list up. It's in the Neo Geo. For some reason, it slipped my mind as to what game it was, but it's kind of like Alien Syndrome. It's just by individual rooms.
So it's on one of the Neo Geo cabs where I'm gonna have to go look because it's gonna be mixed in with the other games, right?
Yes, but the cabinet that it's in right now is only being shared with Cyberlip.
All right.
So it's going to be easy to find, but
Yeah, that's why I was gonna check out and then when we go up there.
it's something Crisis. I don't know why I forgot the name of the game. Doggone it.
Xeno
Well,
Crisis.
yes, that's it.
Yep.
That's a homebrew. And that got put in. So he brought that out for T20.
Right on.
If you want to count Dark Presence as a homebrew, well, of course it's being developed for the arcade, so I don't know
I know it's fun. It's a
what
murky area.
qualifies as a homebrew.
I like murky. John Riggs helped make a Nintendo game, so it's a
Yeah,
homebrew.
I saw some of that.
I know, but this is like specific. He was like doing this. He was working, I think, with MegaCat to make this game, and then he hacked that game. And so I was like, what does that make it? I mean, it hadn't been released yet, so he was like tinkering with the game already, and it was like, does that mean it's like it's still homebrew or is it a hack? I don't know. It's weird.
Hack of a homebrew.
Yeah, but it was while it was in development, so it's like I don't. Is it? Are you hacking it if it hasn't come out yet and you're making changes? I don't know.
All right, we're about to get into this. Any future goals?
I'm working on my 3-screw, 5-screw set. I am missing 8 known carts. These are weird variants for the Nintendo. They shouldn't exist. I'm missing 8. I think one of the 8 is 5-screw stadium events. I mean, I don't even have stadium events, so I'm not going to get 5-screw stadium events. So I'm not worried about that. But the
Okay,
other,
so we're talking about the same games, but in 3 versus 5 screws with the strange little heads on them. And
yes,
if you tried to open them up, you need a special tool.
exactly. That's what I'm into, and I'm missing just like I said, 8. I'm 8 carts away from being complete, and I've been doing that for a very long time. It's a very dumb, lofty goal, but I'm so close now that I'm sticking with it. I'm gonna see if I can knock it out.
You know, I need to pull something out. Let me show you something.
Do it.
Shoot.
I'll entertain the crowd while he's gone. Let's see. 3 and 5 screw.
You better stay off.
I like gameplay counselor binders. I have more than one set of gameplay counselor binders, specifically looking for the guide to the mutant virus, because the mutant virus, I don't think anybody's quite figured out yet. And so if we could find the guide for that, that would be amazing. But so far, it hasn't turned up.
Do you collect any family carts? Because this is a family cart, and this is the converter.
Yeah. I like that converter. I haven't seen a converter like that. That's kind of cool.
This is put out by Crimeycade. I got it off Amazon.
Oh, this is new. Okay, that's why I don't know it. Yeah, I like that it makes it look like a Nintendo cart.
Yes, well, kind of. It's so
you put it in the Nintendo.
I put in, yes. So this is Gradius 2. This was not released in the United States because it has some sort of special chip that Nintendo of America did not want to manufacture in this country for some bizarre reason.
Too cheap.
So we got Life Force instead.
I like Life Force. Life Force is good.
I did get, and I do own Life Force. And
do you think Gradius 2 is better?
There's some similar things between this and Life Force. The boss rush has some of the same bosses.
Okay.
The brain that comes out, and then
it has like an eyeball, right? And like little
arms. And then the giant, I guess you can call it an eye. At the very end of the game of Life Force, it comes out as a mid boss, or the part of the boss rush. The ship with the spinning tentacles. Yeah, that's part of that. Another stage had the flying over a flaming planet or the suns and shooting those arc flames. Yes, that was in stage 1, and Life Force had it in a later stage. But the last stage of Gradius 2 had these closing cell walls. It's stage 1 in Life Force, but the last stage in Gradius 2.
Okay.
I guess you could call this kind of the same thing, kind of with a total remix or something. I don't know.
That's weird that they would be like stealing levels. Did Japan get Life Force 2? Was that a separate game? So it would have been Gradius 2, Life Force for
them? It was
them?
called Salamander.
That's right. Yeah, I forgot about that. It is. It's different.
But they did have to change Salamander. Apparently, also, I think the deal was Konami and America had to make changes to the game to make it run on an American Nintendo. So features got taken out.
Yeah.
Like, if you remember Contra.
I was going to say, sometimes I thought it was the right decision, because taking the map out of Contra was the right choice, because it makes that game so boring when you include the map. And for those of you who don't know,
like an interlude.
it's like Ghosts and Goblins. Japan's Contra, in between levels, it would do this weird scroll of the entire thing and show you what level, like what world you were on or whatever, level 1, level 2, level
Yeah,
3. But
the backgrounds were animated.
Contra's so quick, man. I
I
mean,
know.
it's like calling a timeout to mess with the other team. I felt like it messes with the rhythm of the game. I do not like the map. I love Contra. I hate that stupid map. The map is cool, but in terms of coming, I did not like it.
So we have questions from the chat. What do you think are some of the most unique NES homebrew games in terms of concept or gameplay? You know, I got several of the Midwest Gaming Classic homebrew VIG carts. I need to do a stream where I just run through all of them sometime in the future. So let me hide this.
We got full quiet.
Full Quiet, which is for which system?
This is for Nintendo.
How do you play it? Or what is it about?
You're like a mountain man whose, I think, father's been kidnapped by maybe alien forces. You don't know, something supernatural is going on, and you are trying to rescue them. I was lucky enough that I got to beta test this game.
You know, is it kind of based on the movie The Quiet Place?
No, it's not. Full quiet has to do with you're using more. You're a ham radio operator basically, and you're in touch with these other radio operators in the area, and you're doing stuff via Morse code. So there's a lot of puzzles, a lot of Morse code. Not like so much that it's off-putting. It's just it's part of the game. It was to me interesting because I hadn't seen anybody use that. It's a platformer. The stuff that they did would, like old developers, it would blow their mind. I don't know how to explain it. You can do the map like a square, right? But they figured out how if you're here and there's like a part of the world in the background, when you go around and now you're over here, this part of the world is the background. I mean, so you'll see stuff in the background when you're on one place, and then eventually you get to that. And then the background for that will be the place that you just came through. The stuff, I mean, just the things that they were, the parallaxing, the gameplay, it was amazing. And I compared it to playing Metroid for the first time because I remember playing those games before Nintendo Power, and that was what getting to play Full Quiet was like because there was no game fact. They were, I'm beta testing it. They don't even give you control instructions. They usually just give you the ROM, and then they say, "No, report back to me." Every beta test I've done has been like that, where it was like, "You're not you can at least tell me what the controls do," and they're like, "No, they never do. They just give you the ROM, and then they're like, good luck." And then you come
just
back.
want you to figure it out.
Yeah. Man, so I played the early ROM, and I thought it was one of the best games for Nintendo I'd ever played. And so I went back to Greg and Tim, who are the owners and run Retrotainment Games. They're the ones who were developing Full Quiet. I went back to them with the first ROM they gave me, and I was like, guys, this is amazing. This is one of the best Nintendo games I've ever played. Like, and I'm hesitant to tell you that, like, because I don't want to interrupt the process. You guys aren't done yet, but right now this is one of the best games I've ever played. And Greg said, "Oh, really? Wait until you get to see the bosses." I didn't realize that I hadn't been given the full game. I thought I had the game, and I was like, "This is what I had." I was like, "This is the best, one of the best games ever made." And then I found out there was more, and I was just like, "What?"
It's
And,
basically they gave you a demo to get used to the
make sure
gameplay mechanics.
No, I was doing level testing. I was making sure that the overworld was fully accessible. I was testing out like the puzzles. I was making sure that the triggers were being that they were flagging and that things were turning on. But then so there was like I didn't get the final level and I didn't get the bosses. And so that was before the final ROM release. I got another one, and that was when they included that stuff, and it was just like, oh my gosh, it's better. And then I got really good at it, and I kept telling them to make it harder. I warned him. I was like, you might have a Battletoad situation because I've been playing it for a while. I was like, but once you figured it out, it was like I was just blowing through it. I was like, you got to make it tougher because once it clicks, then it like it's really really hard, and then all of a sudden it clicks, and then it's really really easy. And I was like, it's weird how that's happening. And I was like, you got to make it more difficult. And so I think they did. I think they added in a feature where as the day goes on and it becomes night, like when it gets darker, all the bad guys are stronger. They're at night. That's their time, so they're harder to defeat during the nighttime. Full Quiet is amazing. I highly recommend it. I compared it to playing Metroid for the first time. I had to get up my graphing paper. I had to make maps, but just the experience, like the enjoyment. I remember that experience of playing Metroid, and that was what it was like playing Full Quiet for the first time. And I was like, this is amazing. You've captured that experience that I remember so vividly as a kid. Like, you guys did it. This is if this game came out back in the day, it would have been licensed like immediately. It's so good. That's the one, man. I tell everybody that. Check it out. Like, if you want to play a really great Nintendo game where you're just like, holy shoot, Full Quiet. Before that was Lizard. Lizard, also a platformer. I guess that's just kind of my jam. There are a bunch of shmups out there that are amazing. They're all coming out of Japan. You've got Astro Ninja Man, I think DX, which Limited Run just picked up. Limited Run's about to actually. These games were all really small quantities. It was, a guy who is developing a shmup in Japan, and so the releases for these homebrews was kind of small. But Limited Run's been picking up some of them. So I saw Astro Ninja Man just became available. It's like these 4 disco guys at the bottom that are like shooting stuff up, and you're taking things out as they come. There's another guy I'm friends with, Neo Dolfino, who's been bringing stuff from Japan into the States, and he's brought some really good shmups too, like Hera Tyler, and there was another one that he brought out too, but Hera Tyler's the ones that's sticking in my head. So there are some really good shmups. They're all coming out of Japan. The platformers seem to all be coming here from the States. Like, it's weird how it's regional, like some of that stuff. But there are some really, really good games that totally stand up and sometimes just dominate, original Nintendo games. I know they tried to like not have shovelware, but there are some not great Nintendo games. And so you see these homebrews, like, this is way better. But we also have that experience, of having played Nintendo for 30 straight years. And so I think the innovation.
Well, going on 40.
Yeah, but just the innovation coming, it's like they're so familiar with it that they are able to come up with new stuff now. And so there's just a lot of cool things being done on the Nintendo still. It's still happening. They're still coming out with good stuff.
All right, we're at the end of this podcast. Any final thoughts?
No, I'm so glad that you reached out about coming down and doing the panel that one year, because that was how I got to know you. And then I kept running into you at shows, and I would always, I don't know if you ever noticed, I always yell out, hey, there's Stephen Lucas, the Nintendo Campus Challenge champion. There he is. I always point at you wherever I see you.
Do you have a trading card? I don't think you have a trading card yet.
We were talking about, like, I have your trading cards. I don't have a trading card. I was talking to somebody this weekend at SoCal Retro about how do I not have a trading card yet? I've done so many different random things in the video game community that you'd think that I'd have one. I don't. I have no cards yet.
Well, let me reveal who my next guest is going to be, because he has 3 of them. Believe it or not. It's this man, Dan Eckervelli. He'll be my guest next week here on the show. Let me hide this. Oh, it's also his birthday today. But he's the organizer of the Video Game Summit, and that will be a part of the 40th annual Pinball Expo this year. It's going to be a combined event.
Interesting.
That'll be in Chicago. So this is going to be the biggest Pinball Expo ever.
Do you like it? Hey, do you like the Pinball Expo? I've never been.
I started at year 30, and that was a milestone year. So the convention was much bigger than it normally was. And then it contracted the following year. When it got to it used to be at the Westin in the Wheaton Hotel up in the Chicago area. Then they moved it to Schaumburg to gosh, what's the name of the place? It's not a Sheraton. Well, it's the Schaumburg Convention Center. Let's put it that way. ATG 25. Yes, that's going to be next June. Well, we'll see if I can come. I don't know. I'll have to get on the train. You know what? Originally, I had in mind to drive down there the next time if I went down to Texas. But part of the problem is
kitties.
Angel, my other cat, has to be medicated because she's on hyperthyroid.
Yep. And
I have to give it to her like daily, but some of the time it's just like every other day. My mom can't really. She's hard to catch.
Little fur babies, man. It makes travel tough.
Yes, of course. Well, he's got 3 cards, so I would get in touch with Todd Freeman of Old School Gamer because he's gonna be the guy. He's gonna be your hookup.
I talked to Ryan. Ryan told me that I just need to go take Walter Day out for lunch. He was like, just take Walter out for lunch.
Well, that too, but
tell him a little bit about who you are and what you're up to. Boom, you'll have a card. And it's like I just haven't run into him.
So you need to take a promo pick of some sort, maybe in front of your collection or something super rare.
If we can do the aftermarket archive, I've got that picture of me where I'm wearing my lab coat and it looks like I'm looking at a board. I'm doing nothing. It looks really good though.
Get a promo pick, then write a description of your gaming, what you're known for in the gaming. Gosh, the cat Cody's climbing on the desk again, and he wants to lay on the keyboard as well. Idiot. Write a description of your gaming profile in about 200 words and less, and send it to Todd Freeman. And yeah,
all right, I'll get on top of it.
I gotta do one for somebody else, and who doesn't have a card. And I interviewed her on this podcast weeks ago. She's from the United Kingdom. She's like the best female joust player in the world. She didn't have a card. I think she should have a card. And she flew in for T20 last year.
Is that one guy still maxing out all the jousts? I haven't seen him in a long time. He was going around.
Lonnie McDonald, I think, is still traveling the country, but I don't know. I don't know where he is currently. But he has put in appearances at the Ghost and Free Play Dallas. Well, right Tracy went there too. Tracy Gleave. That's who she is. She went to Galloping Ghost and then went all the way down to Texas to this place in the same month. It's like, oh my gosh. What cards are these? Are you talking about these?
Yeah, he's talking about
these. Are the Walter Day. These are the Walter Day trading card. This is a Walter Day trading card collection. This is my original. My first card, which was given to me, card 178, which is marks or commemorates my 1991 Nintendo Campus Challenge Championship. This card commemorates me winning the Galloping Ghost Gamer of the Year in 2021. This is card number 4124. So that's what they are.
I think the Mega Collection, I think the Dragon Warriors would be worthy. That feels like a good card. The first Mega Collection, 1,000 copies of the same game.
Yes, I think that's the hook. I think that'll be your hook.
Because I've got the picture too. It's me. I dressed up as the Dragon Warrior. We made a throne out of the Dragon Warrior carts. The The only time I shared that picture was with Kotaku. They reached out to me and then didn't run the story. I gave them a whole.
I'm wondering why you brought up Kotaku. The editor of that publication needs to be thrown into a rubber room. She's a raging lunatic who's challenging other gamers to fights and now doxing certain other YouTubers, and now they're harassing their employers. And yeah.
Tell me how you really feel.
Alyssa is the new Karen, as far as I'm concerned, because every Alyssa I've come across is some raging left-wing lunatic. So there you go. That's Alyssa funny. Is the new Karen. That publication needs to be shut down. It's not even about gaming anymore. It's basically these people want to work for Politico, but the left-wing writers are a dime a dozen these days, and nobody wants to read them.
Well, they reached out to me. I will admit it did take me a minute to get back to them, but that was only because they reached out, and then I think Midwest Gaming Classic. I went to another event. Oh, it was MomoCon. That's what it was. I went and ran MomoCon for the Retro World Series. They were double booked that weekend, Memorial Day last year, and that was right after I had gotten the 1,000th copy. So it took me a second to get back to Kotaku just because I was out and about doing video game stuff in the community. And so by the time I got back to him, I guess it wasn't hot anymore, despite all the pictures I gave him and stuff like that. Yeah, MomoCon.
Well, I recall one of those conventions in Texas put out a sign that said Kotaku. It was like giving directions, and one of the signs says Kotaku journalistic integrity 404 error, and they threw a temper tantrum about that. But it was, well, too bad. The truth hurts, buddy.
That was
you and your stupid COVID whining, which all you hacks were dead wrong about. They dadgum admitted they were making it up as they went along. And you, like a good little foot soldier, went along with it, hook, line, and sinker, or you were just taking marching orders from these clowns. Anyway.
That was MagFest. MagFest was the one who had that sign.
Yeah, they shouldn't have taken the sign down. They should have left it up there.
It was the board had just like completely flipped, and so it was a brand new group of people, and that was the first MagFest where like the new group is in charge and we're going to do things differently, and that was one of their decisions, and people were not super happy about it.
Well, I would have left it up the entire time because, you know, they are pretty, well, you see how bad they've gotten. And
they left me hanging. And what bothers me is the fact that, like, when I asked them about it, and I was like, hey, it's fine if you're not going to run it. Would you just let me know? And it was just like silence. They quit responding to me. And it was like, that's frustrating. You just tell me no. Tell me I didn't get the job. Just let me know I didn't get the job so I can go start applying other places, you know?
Yes. Anyway, well, Christian. Thank you for joining me tonight. It's like, gosh, 25 minutes till midnight now.
I didn't even notice, man. I was just having fun.
Yeah, I know. Well, I was just thinking an hour and a half, and then 2.5 hours have ticked by. But, you know, it wasn't boring for even a moment. So
yeah, no, we're having fun.
All right, Christian. Well, we'll hope to see you around the Midwest soon, and maybe another convention nearby in the near future.
If I don't run into you at a show, I'll see you at the Ghost for the anniversary.
All right, Christian. Have a good night.
All right, man. Good times.
All right. That'll do it for this edition of the Crimeycade podcast. I kind of had some things to plug before I left, before I ended this thing. Yes, Dan Cavalli will be here next week. Mentioned the Pinball Expo, that's in October. KC Retro Convention. I kind of thought about joining this, but too many conflicts, so oh well. Kansas City Retro in August 24th, 25th. T20, of course, on the 9th through the 11th. Missouri Game Con, I will be there for that. July 27th, somewhere in the St. Louis area. And Blade Wars Tournament Super Dragon Ball Z on Sunday the 23rd. I'll be in the building. I don't know if I'm participating in the tournament, but we'll have to see. Well, so that will do it for this podcast. I am going to rate a channel. I'm going to send everybody over to Retro Gaming Live TV. I believe they are still streaming, and we'll see you next Thursday right here on Twitch. Have a good night, everybody.